All right, ready to unlock some seriously impressive vocab? We're diving into 15 words that can really level up your English fluency. According to our source, these are the words that separate casual speakers from the truly fluent.
It's amazing how certain words just have that extra oomph, like they carry this aura of sophistication.
Exactly. So we're not just defining them, we're going deep, exploring their history, cultural impact, even their psychological power.
It's about more than just sounding smart, right?
Yeah.
It's about unlocking a whole new level of expression.
Okay, first up is ubiquitous. It means being or seeming to be everywhere at once.
Yeah.
The example they give is smartphones have become ubiquitous in modern society. Pretty accurate, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. But it's interesting, right? Ubiquitous isn't just about physical presence. It's about ideas or phenomena that permeate everything. Like, think about the concept of data these days.
Oh, well, that's a good one.
It's not just on our phones anymore. It's in the cloud, driving algorithms, shaping how we experience the world. Data's become truly ubiquitous.
Right. It's like you can't escape it. It's not just about seeing it everywhere. It's about feeling its influence constantly.
Exactly. Like, it's almost like the air we breathe. We don't really notice it until it's gone or polluted.
All right. Next word is ephemeral. This one means lasting for a very short time, fleeting.
Got it.
The source gives the example, fashion trends are often ephemeral, changing every season.
Oh, that's so true.
Right. Makes you think about how we perceive beauty and value. Do we appreciate things more because they're fleeting?
Oh, that is a good question. And it's not just objects, right? It's experiences too.
Yeah.
Like a sunset, a conversation, a moment of pure joy. These are all ephemeral, but they can have a lasting impact, don't you think?
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to altruistic. It means showing a disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. Unselfish.
Okay.
So the example is, her altruistic nature led her to volunteer at the shelter every weekend.
Makes you think, huh?
Yeah. Like, is altruism something we're born with, or is it learned?
That's the age-old question, right?
Yeah.
Nature versus nurture.
Right. Maybe it's a bit of both. Like, we may have a predisposition towards empathy, but our experiences shape how we act.
That makes sense. Okay, getting a bit darker now. Pernicious. It means having a harmful effect, especially in a gradual or subtle way.
Okay.
The source says misinformation can have a pernicious impact on society.
Oh, especially these days.
Definitely. It's not always a blatant lie, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a twist of the truth that slowly erodes trust.
It's like a slow-acting poison almost. It weakens its victim gradually. Think about historical propaganda.
Yeah.
It wasn't always straight-up lies. It was carefully crafted narratives playing on fears and prejudices. It's scary how effective it can be.
Absolutely. All right, time for a slightly more positive one.
Yeah.
Prolific, meaning producing something abundantly. Fertile.
Okay.
They highlight Shakespeare, saying Shakespeare was a prolific writer, producing dozens of plays and sonnets.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Right. But it's not just quantity, it's the quality and impact of the work. Absolutely. Think of someone like Leonardo da Vinci, painter, sculptor, inventor, scientist. His mind was overflowing with ideas.
It really makes you wonder, what are the conditions that foster that kind of prolific creativity?
Right. Is it personality, environment, a bit of divine inspiration? Who knows? Maybe a unique mix of everything.
Fascinating. Okay, this next one might raise a few eyebrows. Sycophant. A person who tries to win favor from wealthy or influential people by flattering them.
Oh, the classic sycophant.
Right. They give the example, he's such a sycophant, always agreeing with the boss just to get a promotion.
It's not always about career advancement, though, is it? Sometimes it's social status, wanting to be part of the in crowd.
True. But you're right. True power and influence rarely come from just being a sycophant.
Nope. People can usually see right through it.
Okay, get ready to feel brainy. Esoteric, meaning intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest.
Interesting one.
So the example here is, quantum physics is an esoteric subject that few people truly understand.
Very true.
Right. It's something complex, but also incredibly fascinating.
It's like finding a hidden door in a familiar house,
Yeah.
You know there's something cool behind it, but you need the right key to unlock it.
Oh, I love that analogy. Okay, this one might be a mouthful. Obfuscate, meaning to make something obscure, unclear, or unintelligible.
Okay.
They say, The politician obfuscated his response to avoid answering directly.
Classic.
Right, it's like a magician using misdirection.
Exactly. It's a smokescreen of words, leaving you confused. And it's not just politicians. We see it in marketing, legal documents, even everyday conversations when people are avoiding confrontation.
Totally. This next word has a sense of simplicity. Austere, meaning severe or strict in manner, attitude, or appearance.
Got it.
They give the example, monks often live in austere conditions with few possessions. But it's interesting, austerity can be both appealing and repelling.
Right. Like for some, it represents discipline, self-control, a rejection of excess. But for others, it can feel cold, harsh, even punishing.
It's all about perspective, right? What's liberating for one person might feel constricting for another.
Exactly. That's what's so great about language. Let's just explore these nuances.
Absolutely. Speaking of different perceptions, next up is fastidious, meaning very attentive to and concerned about accuracy and detail.
Okay.
The example is, she is a fastidious editor spotting even the tiniest mistakes.
I can relate to that.
Right. It's a blessing and a curse.
Imagine having a really fastidious roommate, always tidying up, double-checking everything. Could be a bit much, right?
I can imagine. Okay, I think we can all relate to this one. Lethargic, meaning affected by lethargy, sluggish and apathetic.
We've all been there.
The source says, after staying up all night, I felt lethargic all day.
Yep.
Super relatable, but important to note that persistent lethargy can be a sign of something more serious.
Absolutely. Don't just ignore it if it's going on for a long time.
This next word is all about generosity. Magnanimous, meaning very generous or forgiving, especially toward a rival or someone less powerful than oneself.
Okay.
The example they give is, despite losing, Hughes was magnanimous in congratulating the winner.
Shows real character.
It does, right. It makes you think about humility and sportsmanship.
It's about recognizing that there's more to life than winning or losing. It's about acknowledging others, even when you're disappointed. It's a quality we could use more of these days.
Absolutely. Okay, getting a bit mysterious now. Clandestine, meaning kept secret or done secretively, especially because illicit.
Ooh, intrigue.
Right. The example is, they held a clandestine meeting late at night.
Love it.
So clandestine activities aren't always spy stuff, right? They can happen in everyday life when there's a need for secrecy.
Definitely. Like, imagine activists organizing a protest in a place where it's dangerous. They might have to meet in secret, communicate in code. Their actions might be clandestine, but their motives could be noble.
That's a good point. Okay, last word for this part. Mitigate, meaning to make something less severe, serious, or painful.
Okay.
The example is pretty straightforward. Wearing a seatbelt mitigates the risk of injury in an accident.
Practical, but important.
Right. And think about its applications in other areas, like climate change. We can mitigate its effects through reducing emissions and investing in renewable energy. Or in economics with social safety nets and job training programs.
It's about being proactive, recognizing risks, and taking action.
Exactly. We can't always prevent bad things from happening, but we can try to lessen their impact. It's a valuable mindset.
For sure. Welcome back to our vocab exploration. Ready for more word power?
Absolutely. It's amazing how much depth these seemingly simple words have.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. More to discover with each layer.
Love that. Okay, so up next we have austere, meaning severe or strict in manner, attitude, or appearance.
You know what comes to mind? Ancient Sparta. Their whole society, famous for warriors. They value discipline, self-denial, rejecting luxury.
Oh, interesting.
And their architecture, their way of life, it all reflected that. Fascinating how a culture's values can show up in their language and surroundings, right?
Totally. The source gives the example, monks often live in austere conditions with few possessions. But it's funny, austerity can be seen as both positive and negative, right?
Oh, for sure. For some people, austerity means freedom, freedom from material things, from the pressures of always wanting more. It lets you focus on what really matters. But for others, it can feel like you're being deprived, like you're missing out on the comforts that make life enjoyable.
It's like, imagine a room that's completely bare, just white walls and a single chair. Some people would find that peaceful. Others would find it cold and empty.
Exactly. It really comes down to each person's values, right? What one person finds liberating might feel oppressive to someone else.
Next up is fastidious, meaning very attentive to and concerned about accuracy and detail. I think our detail-oriented listeners will appreciate this one.
Well, yeah. I think of architects or engineers. They have to be so precise in their calculations and designs, making sure everything is perfect so the structures they build are safe.
The source uses the example, she is a fastidious editor, spotting even the tiniest mistakes. And it makes me think fastidiousness is often linked to professions where accuracy is crucial.
It's not just about being organized, though. It's deeper than that. It's like a need for things to be just right, a drive for excellence, which can be great, but also a bit challenging sometimes.
Imagine working on a project with someone who's super fastidious. They might drive everyone crazy with their attention to detail, but ultimately their input could make the whole project better.
True. It's about finding that balance, striving for excellence without getting stuck in perfectionism.
Speaking of getting stuck, our next word is lethargic, meaning affected by lethargy, sluggish, and apathetic.
We all know that feeling, don't we?
The source says, after staying up all night, I felt lethargic all day. Pretty relatable, I think.
Oh, yeah. But sometimes, lethargy can be a sign of something deeper, like burnout, depression, maybe even a medical condition.
It's like, imagine feeling lethargic for weeks on end, no matter how much sleep you get. That's when you need to pay attention and maybe talk to a doctor.
Exactly. Don't just brush it off as being tired. Sometimes your body's trying to tell you something's up.
Now, for a word that's all about generosity and forgiveness, magnanimous, meaning very generous or forgiving, especially toward a rival or someone less powerful than yourself.
I think magnanimity is a quality we often see in people who have overcome big challenges in life. They faced hardship, experienced loss, and they've come out of it with a deeper understanding of people. They're more empathetic and compassionate.
The example the source gives is, despite losing, he was magnanimous in congratulating the winner. That's real sportsmanship.
Imagine a leader, after a really tough election, reaching out to their opponent to work together. That's magnanimity, right?
Right.
Rising above the political battles and remembering we're all human.
It's a good reminder that true strength isn't about dominance. It's about forgiveness, empathy, building bridges instead of walls.
Okay, ready for a bit of mystery? Our next word is clandestine, meaning kept secret or done secretively, especially because illicit.
Oh yeah, this one always makes me think of spy novels. Secret agents meeting in dark cafes, secret codes, missions under the cover of darkness.
The source uses the example, they held a clandestine meeting late at night. Gets your imagination going, doesn't it?
But clandestine stuff doesn't always have to be about spies. It happens in everyday life too, right? Anytime there's a need for secrecy.
Think about activists organizing against a dangerous regime. They might have to meet in secret, be careful about how they communicate. Their actions might be clandestine, but their reasons could be really important.
Good point. So it's not always about doing something bad. It's about keeping it hidden for whatever reason.
Now let's talk about mitigate, meaning to make something less severe, serious, or painful.
This one's pretty practical. The source says, wearing a seatbelt mitigates the risk of injury in an accident. Simple action, big impact.
Exactly. And think about mitigating things like climate change. We can do that by reducing emissions, using renewable energy, or in economics, mitigating the effects of hardship with things like safety nets and job training.
It's about being proactive. We can't always stop bad things from happening, but we can try to lessen the damage.
Absolutely. It's a powerful way to approach problems.
Okay, last word for this part, and it's a doozy. Nefarious, meaning wicked or criminal.
This one sends shivers down my spine. It's like pure evil lurking in the shadows.
The source gives the example. The villain's nefarious plan was finally revealed. Classic villain moment.
But nefarious things happen in real life too, right? And often it's people in positions of power who abuse that power for their own gain.
Like corrupt politicians who only care about enriching themselves, or CEOs who prioritize profits over people and the environment.
Those aren't just greedy actions, they're morally wrong. They completely disregard the well-being of others.
It's a reminder that we have to be careful, hold people accountable, and never ignore injustice. Back for more amazing vocabulary. We're unlocking the final 5 words in our vault. These are the words that can truly elevate your communication, make you sound like a language pro.
I'm excited to dig into these last few words. They're really interesting.
All right, let's jump right in. Our next word is prolific, which signifies producing something in large quantities. Art, ideas, inventions, anything that comes from that creative spark.
I got it.
The source uses the example, Shakespeare was a prolific writer, producing dozens of plays and sonnets. What do you think? What drives that level of creative output?
It's a great question. Like, is it pure talent or maybe discipline, that constant search for inspiration?
Right. Is it something you're born with, or is it something you can develop?
Maybe it's a bit of both. Some people seem to be naturally more in tune with the world, you know? They absorb experiences and turn them into art.
That's interesting.
But then you also have those who make it a habit, a daily practice. They show up and create, even when they don't feel inspired.
Oh, it's almost like a muscle, right? The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah, I like that analogy. The more you create, the easier it becomes.
Okay, get ready for this one. It's about flattery and manipulation. It's sycophant, a person who tries to win favor from wealthy or influential people by flattering them.
Ah, the sycophant, a timeless character, right? Always trying to climb that social ladder.
The example they give is, he's such a sycophant, always agreeing with the boss just to get a promotion.
It's not always about career advancement, though, is it?
You're right.
Sometimes it's that desire to be seen as part of the in crowd, to feel important by association.
True. But I think most people can see through it, you know? Real power doesn't come from just being a sycophant.
No, it doesn't. Authenticity and integrity are way more valuable in the long run.
Okay, get ready to feel your brain expand. Esoteric, meaning intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest.
Okay.
The example is, quantum physics is an esoteric subject that few people truly understand.
Makes sense.
It's this idea that even within fields that we think we understand, there are levels that are just beyond most of us.
It's like there's this whole world of knowledge out there, but only certain people have the keys to unlock it.
Exactly. It's humbling, but also kind of exciting, right? There's always more to learn.
That's what makes it an adventure.
Okay, time for a word that's all about confusion.
Obfuscate, meaning to make something obscure, unclear, or unintelligible.
Okay.
The example they give is, the politician obfuscated his response to avoid answering directly.
Oh, classic politician move.
Right. It's all about creating confusion, diverting attention, and it's not just politicians who do it. Think about complicated legal contracts or marketing campaigns that make big promises but are actually quite vague. It's like they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
Exactly. It's a reminder to be critical of the information we're given, you know? Question things, seek clarity, especially when things seem deliberately confusing.
Developing those critical thinking skills is more important than ever these days.
And finally, we come to our last word, one that embodies pure wickedness. Nefarious, meaning wicked or criminal.
Oh yeah, that's a heavy one.
The source gives the example. The villain's nefarious plan was finally revealed.
Right out of a movie, huh?
But nefarious acts don't just happen in fiction. They happen in real life, too.
And sadly, it's often people in positions of power who commit them, abusing that power for their own gain.
Think about dictators throughout history who caused so much suffering and death.
Their regimes were based on lies, manipulation, a complete lack of respect for human life.
It's a sobering thought, but it's a reminder to stay informed, to hold those in power accountable, and to never be silent in the face of injustice.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And there you have it. We've reached the end of our vocabulary deep dive.
What a journey. We've gone from everyday words to words that are rarely used, from the positive to the, well, downright nefarious.
We've explored the history, the psychology, the impact these words have. But more importantly, we've seen how language can be a powerful tool. It helps us understand each other, connect with each other, and make the world a better place.
I think that's a great takeaway.
So to our listeners, go out there and use these words. Explore them, play with them, let them enrich your conversations. And remember, the journey of learning never really ends. There are always new words to discover and new ways to express ourselves. Until next time, happy exploring.
All right, so I know you love to learn new things, but hate feeling overwhelmed with too much information.
Yeah, that's a common feeling.
And you're here because you want to become fluent in English.
Right.
Thankfully, you've come to the right place.
Indeed.
We've been digging deep into some insightful research on language acquisition.
Fascinating stuff.
And believe it or not, it all boils down to just two key things.
Two things. Really, just two things.
I'm intrigued.
So tell me, what are those two magic ingredients to fluency?
Well, they're not exactly magic, but they are surprisingly effective when used in tandem.
Okay.
The first is immersion, and the second is speaking practice.
Immersion and speaking practice.
That's right.
Okay. That makes sense at a high level. But how does it actually work? I mean,
Well, think about it. How do children learn their first language?
oh, that's a good point.
They don't crack open a textbook or memorize verb conjugations, do they?
Definitely not.
It's all about being surrounded by the language and absorbing it naturally.
Yeah, just like soaking it all up. Exactly. It's like their brains are just constantly taking in language from their surroundings.
Interesting.
And that's the essence of immersion, creating an environment where you're constantly exposed to English.
So how do we recreate that immersive experience as adults?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't exactly go back to being babies, can we?
Right. But we can still kind of hack our brains a bit.
Okay.
And there are some surprisingly easy ways to do it.
Like what?
Have you ever considered changing the language settings on your phone or computer?
You mean like switching my phone and computer to English?
Exactly. It might seem like a small change,
Yeah.
but it can be really powerful.
Okay.
Research shows that even passive exposure, like reading menus and notifications in English, can actually trigger your brain to start recognizing patterns and absorbing new vocabulary.
So it's like tricking my brain into thinking I'm in an English-speaking environment, even if I'm just scrolling through Instagram.
Precisely.
Clever.
And speaking of Instagram, social media can be a fantastic tool for immersion.
Okay, how so?
What if instead of just aimlessly scrolling, you followed some English-speaking creators that you admire? Comedians, artists, educators, anyone whose content you find engaging.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I'm always looking for new accounts to follow.
Right.
And now I have an excuse to spend more time on social media.
That's the spirit. It's all about finding ways to make English a natural part of your life rather than something you have to force yourself to study.
I like that.
And there are so many ways to do that, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
So we've got social media device settings.
Yeah.
What are some other ways to create that immersion experience?
Well, have you ever tried listening to podcasts or audiobooks in English?
I have, but I sometimes get discouraged because I don't always understand every single word.
And that's totally normal.
Okay.
You don't have to understand every single word to benefit from the experience.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, research suggests that encountering unfamiliar words in context can be more effective for learning than memorizing lists of vocabulary.
Wait, really? Why is that?
Well, when you come across a new word in a podcast or audiobook, your brain has to work a little harder to figure out the meaning, based on the surrounding words and the overall context.
Yeah.
And that active problem-solving process helps the new words stick in your memory.
It's like my brain is doing a little workout every time I listen.
Exactly.
Cool.
And the more you listen, the stronger those language muscles become.
I like that.
You'll start to pick up on those subtle nuances of pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm that make English sound so natural.
Okay, I'm definitely starting to see the power of immersion. It's like creating this constant stream of English input that's slowly but surely shaping my brain.
You got it. And speaking of shaping your brain, let's move on to the second key element, speaking practice.
Okay.
Because while immersion is great for building a foundation, fluency requires actually using the language actively.
It makes sense. I mean, you wouldn't expect to become a great musician just by listening to music, right? You have to actually play an instrument to develop those skills.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Speaking practice is like playing the instrument of language.
Oh, I like that.
It helps you develop muscle memory, improve your pronunciation, and gain confidence in expressing yourself in English.
But isn't it kind of intimidating to speak a language?
Yeah.
You're still learning, especially if you're not used to making mistakes.
It's totally understandable to feel that way.
Right.
But here's the thing, making mistakes is actually a crucial part of the learning process.
Really?
Yeah, some researchers even believe that mistakes are how our brains solidify new neural connections.
So the more mistakes I make, the better I'll learn.
In a way, yes.
That's good news for me.
The key is to embrace those mistakes as opportunities for growth.
I like that.
Don't be afraid to experiment with the language, to try out new words and phrases, and to put yourself in situations where you have to speak English, even if it feels uncomfortable at first.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's like giving myself permission to be a beginner again.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
And there are so many fun and effective ways to get that speaking practice.
Like,
you could find a language partner, use AI chatbots, or even talk to yourself in English.
wait, talk to myself. That sounds a bit unusual.
It might sound strange, but it's actually a really powerful technique.
Yeah.
Trust me, you're not alone.
Right.
Many language learners find that talking to themselves helps them to process new vocabulary, internalize grammar rules, and develop fluency without feeling self-conscious.
So it's like having a private rehearsal space where I can practice my English skills without judgment.
Precisely. It's a safe space to experiment with different accents, try out new phrases, and even have imaginary conversations in English.
You've convinced me. Talking to myself, it is.
Great.
So what are some other strategies for getting that crucial speaking practice?
Well, that's what we'll unpack in part 2.
Stay tuned.
So we talked about immersion,
Yeah.
but how do we actually start speaking more confidently?
Okay. Yeah, it's time to get to the practical stuff.
Right.
How do we put this into action?
Well, one of the action steps that stood out to me from the source material was finding a language partner.
Oh, the good old language buddy system.
Exactly.
Does that really work?
It absolutely does. There's just something so powerful about having those real-time conversations with another person, you know?
Yeah.
It forces you to think on your feet,
Right.
adapt to different speaking styles, and actually use the language you've been learning.
It's like taking your English skills out for a test drive.
Exactly.
But finding a language partner can be tough, especially if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
That's true. But thankfully, technology has made it easier than ever to connect with people all over the world.
Okay.
There are so many platforms and apps dedicated to language exchange.
Oh, right.
You know, you can find someone who's learning your native language,
Uh-huh.
and you can help each other out.
It's like a language swap.
Exactly. A mutually beneficial language swap.
I like it. You get to practice your English, they get to practice your language, and you might even make a new friend in the process.
Precisely.
Cool.
And who knows, maybe someday you can even visit each other and practice your language skills in person.
That would be fun.
So that's language partners. But let's say you're not quite ready to jump into a full conversation with someone.
Yeah.
Have you considered AI chatbots?
Oh, yeah, we talked about those before, right?
We did. But they're not just for immersion.
Okay.
They can also be really valuable for speaking practice.
Mhm.
Technology has come a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
These chatbots can actually hold surprisingly natural conversations.
Wow.
They can understand different accents, and they can even correct your grammar.
Really? So it's like having a personal language tutor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Available 24/7.
Awesome.
And it's a lot less pressure than talking to a real person.
No awkward silences.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, it's back.
It's a great way to practice, experiment, and build your confidence before you start having those real-life conversations.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we've got language partners, we've got AI chatbots. What about something like shadowing?
Shadowing.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a great technique.
Is it kind of like what actors do when they're preparing for a role?
It is similar. Basically, you listen to a native English speaker. It could be a podcast, audiobook, YouTube video, anything really.
Uh-huh.
And you try to repeat what they're saying as closely as possible.
So like mimicking their pronunciation and intonation.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It might feel a little strange at first,
Yeah.
but it's an incredibly effective way to train your mouth and your ears to work together.
Okay.
It helps you internalize those subtle nuances that you just don't get from a textbook.
Cool. So it's like turning passive listening into active practice.
Precisely.
And I bet it can be pretty entertaining too, depending on who you're shadowing.
Absolutely. You can shadow comedians, singers, motivational speakers, whoever you find inspiring.
I like that.
Now, another powerful tool for self-improvement is recording yourself speaking English.
Ooh, recording myself. I don't know about that.
I know it can be a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But trust me, it's worth overcoming that initial discomfort.
Okay.
It's like holding up a mirror to your speaking habits.
Hmm.
You might be surprised by what you hear.
I can imagine. Like, I might notice mistakes that I wasn't aware of before.
Exactly. Pronunciation errors, filler words, things like that.
Right.
It's all about self-awareness. And once you identify those areas, you can start working on them specifically.
Makes sense. Okay, so what about those of us who are more social learners,
Yeah.
who enjoy learning with other people?
Well, for those folks, joining an online class or discussion group can be a game changer.
Yeah, there's something to be said about learning with a group. It just feels less daunting.
Absolutely. In a group setting, you get regular speaking practice. You receive feedback and you learn from others' experiences.
It's like having a built-in support system.
Exactly. And sometimes that's all you need to stay motivated.
I like that. So we've talked about language partners, AI chatbots, shadowing, recording ourselves, online classes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, have you considered creating daily speaking challenges?
Ooh, daily challenges. I like that. What kind of challenges are we talking about?
It could be anything that gets you speaking.
Okay.
You know, maybe challenge yourself to talk about a specific topic for 5 minutes.
Or have a short conversation with a stranger in English. You could record yourself giving a presentation or even just describe your day in detail.
I love the variety. It's like finding those little opportunities to sprinkle English into your daily life.
Exactly. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
The key is to just start speaking and embrace those mistakes.
Mistakes are our friends. That's the spirit.
Awesome. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. It seems like there's a speaking strategy out there for everyone.
There is. And the most important thing is to find what works best for you.
Okay.
And to make practice a consistent part of your routine.
Right.
Fluency is a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
And it's a journey best taken with a sense of adventure
Okay.
and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
Well said.
Yeah.
Speaking of stepping outside our comfort zones, let's move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some deeper questions from the material
Okay.
and discuss how these principles can be applied beyond just learning English.
Sounds good. Stay with us. As we've been talking about these strategies for learning English,
Yeah.
one thing that really stood out to me from the source material was that sense of urgency.
Right.
Like that encouragement to just take action right away.
Absolutely. The source material really emphasizes that.
Yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in planning and researching different methods,
Right.
but ultimately action is key.
I agree. It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Exactly. We can talk about learning English all day long,
Yeah.
but nothing really happens until we actually start doing it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing.
Right.
Even small steps, like changing your phone settings to English or listening to a short podcast, can make a big difference.
All about building momentum.
You got it.
Yeah.
Once you start taking those small actions, it becomes easier to keep going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this right now, I challenge you to take action,
Yes.
like right after you finish this episode.
Right now, what's one small thing you can do today to move closer to your fluency goals?
Don't overthink it. Just pick one thing and do it.
Exactly. It could be as simple as downloading a language learning app
Yeah.
or writing down a few English phrases.
Or even just saying hello to yourself in the mirror.
It's all about breaking down those mental barriers.
Absolutely.
And proving to yourself that you can do this.
You got this.
And we're here to support you every step of the way.
Now, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
We've been talking about how immersion and speaking practice can help you become fluent in English.
Right.
But what if these principles could be applied to other skills as well?
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, could you immerse yourself in the world of coding by surrounding yourself with code, listening to programming podcasts, watching tutorials?
It's like you're creating that immersive environment
Exactly.
for a different skill.
Right. Or think about cooking. Could you improve your cooking skills by talking yourself through each step of a recipe?
Like you're teaching someone else how to do it.
Exactly.
It's a form of active learning.
Precisely. By immersing yourself in the environment and actively practicing the skill,
Yeah.
you create a powerful feedback loop that accelerates learning.
So what you're saying is that these principles,
Yeah.
the power of immersion in speaking practice,
Right.
could be applied to pretty much anything we want to learn.
That's the idea.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Wow.
It seems like the journey to fluency in any area of life starts with a willingness to embrace these principles
I think so.
and to experiment with different approaches.
Absolutely. And who knows what we might discover
Right.
when we step outside our comfort zones and embrace lifelong learning.
That's a great point. That's a great note to end on. So to our listener, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep pushing yourself beyond your limits.
Yes.
Until next time, happy learning. Ever feel like you're just wading through a sea of words?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know that feeling.
But today, we're diving into the deep end.
That's right.
We're going to explore some advanced English vocabulary, 15 words to be exact.
Okay.
And they're all from this book, Test Your English Vocabulary.
Sounds like a challenge.
Well, it's not about memorizing definitions or anything like that.
Oh, good.
We're going to uncover their hidden depths and how these words connect to the bigger picture.
I like that. It's fascinating how these words can really unlock a deeper understanding of human behavior and communication and even our perception of time.
Absolutely. And to make it a little easier, we'll group our 15 words into themes.
Okay.
First up, the art of communication,
All right.
or sometimes the lack of it.
Right.
Let's start with loquacious. I'm sure you've met someone like this. They could talk a blue streak.
Yeah.
Holding court at a party, even if no one else gets a word in edgewise.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's our loquacious friend.
Yeah.
It's interesting to contrast that with someone who's laconic. They might only say a few words, but those words carry weight. Think of a seasoned judge delivering a verdict. Just brief, to the point, no wasted syllables.
Oh, I like that example. Now, have you ever noticed how some people use big words to actually avoid clear communication?
All the time.
That's where obfuscate comes in.
Right.
It's like they're trying to build a wall of jargon to hide behind.
It happens a lot, especially in fields like, law or finance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's unintentional. They're so used to speaking a certain way, they don't realize it's confusing to others.
Right.
But other times it's a deliberate tactic, make things seem more complex than they are.
Yeah, it's like they think if they use enough fancy words, no one will question what they're actually saying.
Right.
But we're smarter than that.
Absolutely.
We're going to see right through that obfuscation and get to the heart of the matter.
And sometimes the most straightforward language is the most powerful.
Okay, enough about communication. Let's talk about behavior. Our next group of words explores some interesting character types we all encounter.
Okay.
The sycophant, the ostentatious, and the austere. Let's start with the sycophant.
All right.
Oof. Just the word makes me cringe. You know that person who's always showering someone with insincere praise just to get on their good side?
Yeah, the classic yes man, always trying to curry favor. It's interesting to think about why someone might behave this way. Could it be a lack of confidence or maybe even a manipulative strategy to gain power?
Oh, it makes you wonder, right? Now let's swing to the opposite end of the spectrum with ostentatious.
Okay.
This is our friend who loves to flaunt their wealth or success.
Oh, yeah.
Think of the person who always has to have the latest designer clothes, the flashiest car, always name-dropping their fancy vacations.
Yeah, it's all about outward appearances, often masking a deeper need for validation. It makes you think about our society's obsession with status symbols and material possessions, doesn't it?
Totally. Now, in contrast to the ostentatious, we have the austere. This describes someone who lives a simple, unadorned life.
Right.
They're not interested in flashy displays or material wealth. Think of a minimalist who values experiences over possessions.
That's a fascinating counterpoint to the ostentatious lifestyle. In a world that constantly bombards us with messages about what we should want and need, the austere individual chooses a different path.
And I think the word propensity ties all three of these words together nicely.
How so?
Well, it refers to our natural tendencies or inclinations. We might have a propensity for flattery, for extravagance, for simplicity. These tendencies shape our behavior in all sorts of ways.
Exactly. We all have propensities, and recognizing them in ourselves and others can be key to understanding why we act the way we do.
Now let's shift gears and get a little philosophical. Our next group of words deals with time and the intangible.
Okay.
Ephemeral, ubiquitous, and the ineffable.
All right.
Have you ever experienced something beautiful but fleeting, like a stunning sunset that disappears in minutes?
Oh, yeah.
That's the essence of ephemeral.
It's about recognizing the beauty in transience, in those moments that are precious because they don't last. In a world that often values permanence and stability, the ephemeral reminds us to cherish the fleeting moments.
That's beautifully put. Now, on the flip side, we have ubiquitous, which describes something that's absolutely everywhere. It used to be rare to see someone using a smartphone, but now they're ubiquitous. You see them on every street corner and every cafe.
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly things can shift from novel to commonplace.
Right.
The ubiquity of technology, for example, has had a profound impact on our lives, for better or for worse.
And finally, we come to ineffable, which might be my favorite word of the bunch.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it describes something so profound, so awe-inspiring, that words simply cannot capture it. Have you ever had an experience like that, where language just failed you?
Absolutely. Sometimes the most profound experiences are the ones that transcend language, like the feeling of standing on a mountaintop overlooking this vast landscape or witnessing the birth of a child. These are moments that defy easy description.
It makes you realize the limitations of language, doesn't it? There are some things that words simply can't convey.
And yet that doesn't stop us from trying, from searching for the words that come closest to expressing the inexpressible.
Well said. Ready to tackle our next set of words.
Hit me with it.
This group focuses on actions and reactions.
Yeah.
Perfunctory, temerity, and recant. We'll start with perfunctory.
Okay.
You know those days when you're just going through the motions?
Yeah.
Doing something out of habit or obligation, but without any real heart?
Yeah.
That's perfunctory in action.
We all have those days, right? The key is to recognize when we're stuck in a rut and to make an effort to infuse our actions with more intention and meaning.
So true. Now let's talk about temerity.
Right.
This word is all about boldness, audacity, even a little bit of recklessness. It's about having the guts to do something daring, even if it goes against the grain.
Right.
Have you ever witnessed an act of pure temerity?
Yes. Actually, I recall a time when a junior researcher presented this groundbreaking theory that challenged, the established thinking in the field.
Wow.
It was a bold move considering the potential backlash from senior colleagues.
Wow, that takes courage.
It does.
That makes you wonder, what's the line between temerity and foolishness? I guess it depends on the outcome, right?
I suppose it does. But sometimes those acts of temerity are the ones that lead to true innovation and progress.
And finally, we have recant.
Okay.
This is about taking back your words, admitting you were wrong, often in a public way.
Right.
It could be a politician retracting a statement, a scientist revising a theory, or someone simply owning up to a mistake.
It's a powerful act, recanting.
Yeah.
It requires humility, a willingness to acknowledge our fallibility. In a world where people are often afraid to admit they're wrong, recanting can be a sign of true strength and integrity.
It's about putting truth above ego, which can be a tough thing to do.
It can.
All right, ready to move on to our last group of words.
Let's do it.
This one's all about dreamers and realists, and it centers around the word quixotic.
Quixotic. Named after the idealistic knight, Don Quixote.
Right.
He's famous for tilting at windmills, mistaking them for giants. It's a wonderful example of how idealism and imagination can sometimes clash with reality.
Exactly. The word quixotic captures that blend of idealism, romanticism, and perhaps a touch of naivete.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the balance between chasing dreams and being grounded in reality.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? On the one hand, we need idealism to inspire us, to push us beyond the limits of what seems possible. But on the other hand, we need pragmatism to navigate the complexities of the real world and make progress towards those ideals.
So true.
Yeah.
And sometimes those seemingly impossible quixotic goals can lead to unexpected breakthroughs.
Absolutely. It's about finding that sweet spot between dreaming big and taking practical steps to make those dreams a reality. What about you? Do you have any quixotic goals you're pursuing?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to ponder that one for a bit.
Okay, but in the meantime.
So, any thoughts on those quixotic goals? Did any come to mind during that little pause?
I was thinking about how even outlandish goals can spark innovation. Like, if no one had ever had that crazy idea to fly, well, we wouldn't have airplanes, right?
It's true. Sometimes it's not about reaching that exact vision, but what we discover on the way there.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, it strikes me how the words we've been discussing, they're not just isolated units of meaning. They're part of a larger system.
Right.
A network of interconnected ideas.
That's like a constellation.
Oh, I like that.
Each star adds to the overall beauty and significance of the pattern.
It's true. We've been focusing on individual words, but it's the way we use them, the context, the nuances. That's what brings language to life.
Exactly. Take a word like austere, for instance.
Okay.
It can describe a monk's simple life, but also the starkness of a desert landscape. Or even like a government's harsh economic policies. Same word, but vastly different connotations depending on how it's used. It reminds me of how a single musical note can evoke different emotions based on the melody and the surrounding notes.
That's a fantastic analogy. And just like a composer carefully chooses notes to create a specific mood, skilled communicators select words to evoke feelings and convey precise meaning.
This makes me think about the importance of expanding our vocabulary, not just for intellectual reasons, but to become more effective communicators.
Right.
The more words we have at our disposal, the more precisely we can express ourselves.
It's like having a wider range of colors on an artist's palette. A limited palette can still create beautiful art, but imagine the possibilities when you have every shade and hue imaginable.
And not only can a rich vocabulary enhance our own communication, but it also helps us understand the nuances of what others are saying.
Absolutely. Think about how, politicians or advertisers use carefully chosen words to influence our opinions and behaviors.
It's true.
The more we understand the subtle ways language can be used, the better equipped we are to critically evaluate the messages we're bombarded with every day.
It's about becoming more aware of the power of words, both for good and for bad, but also appreciating the beauty and complexity of language,
Right.
how it can be used to inspire, to connect, to create art.
And that brings us back to the word ineffable.
Okay.
It describes those experiences that transcend language.
Right.
Even though some things defy description, that doesn't mean we should stop trying to express them.
I agree.
It's the effort, the reaching for meaning that enriches our understanding.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Even if we can't perfectly capture an experience in words, the act of trying can help us process it, make sense of it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those struggles to find the right words, lead to the most profound insights.
It's like those moments when a poet struggles to find the perfect rhyme or metaphor.
Yeah.
The result is often a line that's even more beautiful and evocative because of the effort that went into it.
Speaking of poetry, I'm curious, do you have a favorite word? One that you find particularly delightful or thought-provoking?
Oh, that's a tough one. There are so many. But one that's been on my mind lately is serendipity. I love the way it captures those unexpected delights that life throws our way.
Right?
Those moments of fortunate coincidence that lead to new discoveries or connections.
Serendipity is a beautiful word. It reminds me of how sometimes the most meaningful experiences happen when we're not actively seeking them out, when we're open to the unexpected twists and turns of life.
Exactly. It encourages us to embrace a sense of curiosity and wonder, to be open to the possibility that something amazing could be just around the corner.
And who knows, maybe our deep dive today will lead to some serendipitous discoveries for our listeners. They might stumble upon a new favorite word or make an unexpected connection between these words and their own lives.
I certainly hope so. After all, language is about so much more than just definitions. It's about expanding our perspectives, connecting with others, and exploring the richness of human experience.
Now, before we get too philosophical, I think it would be helpful to bring some of these words to life with some concrete examples.
Absolutely. It's one thing to understand a word in the abstract, but it's another to see how it's actually used in context.
For instance, we talked about obfuscate earlier.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how might you see that word used in, say, a legal setting?
Oh, that's an interesting one. In law, you might see obfuscate used to describe a defendant's attempts to hide assets or mislead the court. Or it could be used to criticize a lawyer's dense and confusing legal arguments.
So they're intentionally trying to make things difficult to understand.
It seems that way sometimes.
But as we've been saying, the more we understand these words and the ways they can be used, the better equipped we are to see through those attempts at obfuscation.
Exactly. And speaking of context, I think it'd be interesting to explore the etymology of some of these words.
Oh, yeah.
Trace their origins back to ancient languages and historical events.
I love that idea. Etymology can be like a detective story, uncovering hidden layers of meaning and revealing the fascinating journeys these words have taken over time.
For example, did you know that quixotic comes from the Spanish novel Don Quixote? It's amazing to think how a single literary character can inspire a word that becomes part of our everyday language,
That's true.
carrying with it the spirit of idealism and romanticism.
It's like these words become vessels, carrying centuries of history and cultural meaning within them.
And by delving into their etymology, we can unlock those hidden layers of meaning and gain an even deeper appreciation for the words we use.
It's like going on a linguistic treasure hunt. But instead of digging for gold, we're unearthing the stories and cultural influences that have shaped our language.
And those stories can be just as valuable as any treasure. They remind us that language is a living, breathing entity that's constantly evolving, shaped by the people who use it and the world around them.
This conversation has really sparked my curiosity.
Yeah, mine too.
I'm eager to delve even deeper into the world of language and explore more of its hidden treasures.
Me too. And I have a feeling our listeners are ready to continue this journey with us.
I think so too.
Should we take another short pause and come back for a final round of exploration?
That sounds like a perfect plan. We'll be back soon to wrap up our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary. Welcome back to our deep dive into advanced English vocabulary.
Glad to be back.
It's been such a fascinating journey exploring all these nuances and hidden depths of these words.
Yeah, I agree. It really makes you realize how much richness and complexity there is in language.
Absolutely. And we haven't even touched on idioms and slang,
Oh, that's right.
which adds another layer of color and expressiveness to language.
Imagine trying to explain kick the bucket or spill the beans to someone learning English for the first time.
Oh, that's a good one.
It'd be like trying to teach them a secret code.
Absolutely.
Huh?
And every language has its own unique set of idioms and colloquialisms, right?
Right. It really reflects the history and the culture and even the sense of humor of a language.
Makes you realize how much language is tied to our identity,
Yeah.
both as individuals and as members of a particular community.
And it highlights the importance of cultural exchange and understanding.
Yeah.
The more we learn about other languages and their nuances, the more we expand our own worldview.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something we haven't really talked about yet. The role of grammar and syntax in effective communication.
Ah, yes, grammar and syntax. While we've been focusing on individual words, it's the way we arrange those words, the structure of our sentences. That's what allows us to convey complex thoughts and ideas.
It's like building a house, right?
Yeah.
You need strong, well-crafted bricks, but you also need a solid framework to hold them together.
Precisely. Grammar and syntax provide that framework. They ensure that our message is clear and coherent and easy to understand.
It's amazing to think about how even a slight change in word order or punctuation can completely alter the meaning of a sentence.
A misplaced comma can lead to all sorts of ambiguity and confusion.
So true. And that brings us to another important point, the importance of being precise and intentional with our language choices.
Especially in written communication where we don't have, the tone of voice or body language to help convey our meaning.
Exactly. It makes you realize how much responsibility we have as communicators to use language carefully and thoughtfully.
And it highlights the importance of editing and revising our work to make sure our message is clear, accurate, and free of errors.
Well said. Now, as we come to the end of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways.
Okay.
First and foremost, language is constantly evolving.
It's true. New words are being coined all the time. Old words take on new meanings.
It's like a river,
Yeah.
always flowing and changing shape.
Which means we need to be lifelong learners. Always curious about language and how it's being used in the world around us.
I also want to encourage our listeners to embrace the power of language,
Absolutely.
to see it as a tool for connection, for creativity, for making a difference.
Words have the power to inspire, to inform, to persuade, to heal.
But they can also be used to harm, to deceive, to manipulate. So it's crucial that we use them responsibly and ethically.
Couldn't agree more.
And finally, language is a source of endless fascination and delight. There's always something new to discover, some hidden meaning to uncover, some unexpected connection to make.
That's one of the most beautiful things about it.
So keep exploring, keep learning, keep playing with words, and most importantly, never stop being curious about the incredible power of language.
Well said. Until next time, keep diving deep into the world of words.
Ever get that feeling you might be using a word wrong, but you're too afraid to ask?
Oh yeah.
Well, fear no more. Because today we're diving deep into 15 words that even fluent English speakers mess up. We've got a YouTube script here all about leveling up your vocabulary. And you might be surprised by some of these common mistakes.
It is fascinating, though, how some of these errors stem from subtle distinctions that are easy to miss in casual conversation.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with some beginner traps. Words that seem straightforward, but can be surprisingly tricky. I'll be honest, the word literally is one I hear misused all the time.
Yep.
Just the other day, someone told me they were literally dying from how much they had to do that week.
Yes. Literally seems to be a word that's been taken hostage by hyperbole.
So remind us, what should literally mean? Why is it important to use it correctly?
Literally means something actually happened, exactly as stated.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the reality of a situation, not an exaggeration.
Right.
While your friend might have felt overwhelmed, they weren't literally dying.
Right.
You see, using literally correctly, make sure your words carry their intended weight. It's about precision and clarity, especially in an age where misinformation can spread so easily.
That's a really good point. The impact on communication is huge. Okay, another beginner word that trips people up is unique. I once saw a store advertising a sale on very unique items. Something about that just felt off.
That's because unique means one of a kind.
Right.
Inherently special. It stands alone.
Right.
So adding modifiers like very or quite is redundant and actually weakens the impact of the word.
So instead of saying something is very unique, how can we highlight that specialness in everyday conversation?
Let the word unique speak for itself.
Okay.
You could say that painting is truly unique or her style is unique. You're emphasizing the inherent specialness without needing to qualify it further.
That's so interesting. I can see how that subtle shift makes a big difference. Even these beginner words have hidden depths. You really have to think about their true meaning.
Absolutely, and that's what makes language so fascinating. Now, prepare to have some assumptions challenged because some words have meanings completely different from what most people assume.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example of one of these words.
Let's start with irony.
Okay.
Many people confuse irony with simple coincidence or bad luck. For example, someone might say, "It's so ironic that I won the lottery and then got hit by a car."
So winning the lottery and then getting hit by a car, that's just bad luck, not irony.
Yeah.
What makes a situation truly ironic?
True irony involves a situation where the outcome is the opposite of what was expected, often with a humorous or sarcastic undertone. A classic example would be a fire station burning down. It's not just about unfortunate timing, it's about a surprising reversal of expectations.
Wow, that makes so much sense. It's not just about something bad happening. It's about the unexpected nature of the situation.
You see, understanding irony helps us analyze situations more deeply. It's not just about bad luck. It's about recognizing the unexpected and sometimes absurd nature of life.
Speaking of unexpected twists,
Yeah.
let's talk about a word. Often misused in situations with high stakes. Alibis. I feel like I hear people using alibi as a synonym for any kind of excuse.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have a good alibi.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a common mistake. People might say, I didn't finish the project, but I have a good alibi.
Wait, so if it's not just any excuse, what makes a real alibi? I'm genuinely confused.
An alibi has a very specific legal meaning.
Okay.
It refers to proof that someone was somewhere else at the time a crime was committed, demonstrating their innocence. It's not just any excuse. It's evidence that clears someone of suspicion.
So using alibi to explain why you didn't finish a project wouldn't really make sense.
Exactly. Using alibi in casual conversation when you simply mean excuse can actually undermine your credibility. It shows a lack of precision in your language.
Okay, this is making me rethink how I use these words. What other intermediate words are lurking out there, ready to trip us up?
How about a word that's often confused with its near opposite? Disinterested. Many people use disinterested to mean uninterested or bored. For instance, someone might say, I was completely disinterested in that meeting.
Disinterested. If it doesn't mean bored or uninterested, then what does it actually mean?
Disinterested actually describes someone who is impartial or unbiased, free from personal stake or interest in a situation. A good example would be a judge who must remain disinterested in the outcome of a case.
Okay.
They can't be swayed by personal opinions or biases.
So if I wanted to say that I found the meeting boring, disinterested wouldn't be the right word to use.
Precisely. In that case, uninterested or bored would be more accurate.
Right.
Disinterested implies neutrality and objectivity. It's about being impartial, not uncaring.
I never realized how a single word could completely change the tone and meaning of a sentence. It's all about understanding those subtle but powerful nuances.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here to explore. Are you ready to be bemused by the next word?
Bemused. Okay, you've definitely got my attention. What's so tricky about this one?
People often think bemused means amused or entertained.
Okay.
You might hear someone say, I was bemused by his silly jokes.
So if bemused doesn't mean amused, then what's the real meaning?
Bemused actually means puzzled, bewildered, or even slightly confused. Think of it as a state of mild perplexity, for example. You might be bemused by a riddle you can't solve,
Well,
or a strange event you don't fully understand.
so it's not about laughing at a joke. It's about that feeling of, wait, what just happened? That makes a lot of sense.
Imagine someone watching a magic trick,
Right.
their brow furrowed, a slight smile playing on their lips.
Yeah.
That's bemusement. It's not amusement, but a fascinated perplexity.
Okay, now I'm really starting to understand the difference.
Uh-huh.
Bemused is a much richer word than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that space between amusement and confusion.
Exactly. And these subtle distinctions can make a big difference in how your message is received. Are you ready for our final intermediate word?
Bring it on. I'm ready to tackle anything.
All right. Let's explore a word that's often misused to describe something grand or impressive. Enormity. People often use enormity to emphasize the sheer size or scope of something. You might hear someone say, I was overwhelmed by the enormity of the project.
That's how I usually use it. But I have a feeling it doesn't quite mean what I think it means.
Yeah.
What's the real meaning?
While enormity can relate to size, its primary meaning leans towards something more serious and weighty.
Okay.
It often refers to extreme wickedness, outrageousness, or the sheer gravity of a situation,
Right.
particularly in a moral or ethical context.
So it's less about physical size and more about the weight of the implications.
Precisely. For instance, if you were discussing a horrific crime, you might speak of the enormity of the act to emphasize its moral depravity and the severity of its consequences.
Wow, that puts the word in a whole new light. It's not just about something being big, it's about something being profoundly impactful, often in a negative sense.
Exactly. It's a word that carries a lot of weight, both literally and figuratively.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground already. And I'm starting to feel the enormity and the true sense of the word, of all these linguistic nuances. What's next on our journey?
Next, we'll be venturing into the realm of advanced words, where the nuances become even more intricate. Are you ready to level up your vocabulary even further?
Absolutely. I'm eager to see what other linguistic gems await us in this deep dive into words.
Right.
It'd be great.
Awesome. Fasten your seatbelts, because these advanced words can be real brain twisters. They're the ones that often pop up in intellectual discussions or professional settings, and misusing them can unfortunately make you sound less credible.
Okay, I'm ready to face the advanced word challenge head on. Let's start with one that I've definitely struggled with in the past.
Decimate.
Decimate is fascinating because its common usage has drifted quite far from its original meaning. People often use it as a synonym for completely destroy, like saying the hurricane decimated the coastal towns. Yeah, I've definitely heard it used that way. But if it doesn't mean to completely destroy, then what does it actually mean?
Decimate has a very specific historical root. It comes from the ancient Roman practice of punishing mutinous troops by killing 1 out of every 10 soldiers. So the original meaning of decimate is to reduce by 1/10, not to obliterate completely.
Wow, I had no idea. That's a pretty grim origin story for a word. So using decimate to describe the total destruction of a town wouldn't be quite right.
Exactly. It's a case of hyperbole overtaking precision. While the impact of a hurricane can be devastating, it's unlikely to literally reduce a town's population by exactly 1/10.
This is why I love these deep dives. You uncover these hidden layers of meaning that we often miss in everyday conversation. It's like learning a secret code.
This word's bloody history reminds us that language carries the weight of the past. Even today, decimate suggests a severe calculated reduction, not total destruction.
Okay, what other advanced words are waiting to be decoded?
Let's tackle one that often gets misused in academic circles: peruse.
Peruse. I'll admit I've been guilty of using this one incorrectly myself. I always thought it meant to quickly skim through something.
That's a very common misconception. In reality, peruse means to read thoroughly and carefully. It implies a close and attentive examination of a text, not a hasty glance.
So if I said I perused the report before the meeting, it would mean I'd given it a very close read, not just skim the headings.
Precisely. Using peruse correctly conveys a sense of diligence and attention to detail. It suggests you've really absorbed the information.
This is another one of those aha moments. I'm realizing that using these advanced words correctly can signal a certain level of intellectual rigor. It shows you're not just skimming the surface.
Exactly. It's about choosing words that accurately reflect the depth of your engagement with the topic.
All right, bring on the next advanced word challenge. I'm feeling more and more confident with each one we tackle.
Let's see if you can crack the code on this one. Nonplussed.
Nonplussed. This one seems tricky. I've heard it used to describe someone who's calm and collected under pressure. Like, even though the presentation went wrong, she remained nonplussed.
That's a clever guess, but it's actually the opposite. Nonplussed describes a state of being surprised and confused, often to the point of speechlessness. It's that feeling of being caught off guard and unsure how to react.
Wow, so it's almost like being speechless with shock.
Exactly. Nonplussed implies a momentary loss of composure, a sense of being bewildered. It's that deer in the headlights feeling.
That makes so much more sense. I can see how misusing this word could lead to some awkward situations.
Indeed, it highlights the importance of understanding the nuances of these advanced words. They can have a big impact on how our message is perceived.
Okay, what other advanced word adventures await us? I'm ready to expand my vocabulary horizons.
Let's explore a word that often gets used in a way that diminishes its true impact. Plethora.
Plethora.
I usually think of this word as meaning a lot of something, in a positive way, like there was a plethora of fun activities to choose from at the festival. That's a common interpretation. But plethora carries a slightly different nuance. While it does mean an abundance of something, it often implies an excessive or overwhelming amount.
Okay.
It can sometimes even suggest a sense of burden or inconvenience.
Interesting. So it's not just about having a lot of something, it's about having maybe too much of it, like it's overflowing.
Precisely. Imagine a situation where you're bombarded with information or faced with an overwhelming number of choices. That sense of being inundated can be captured by the word plethora.
So if I were to say, I have a plethora of emails to respond to, it would imply that I'm feeling a bit swamped by them, not necessarily excited about having a full inbox.
Exactly. It's about that tipping point where abundance starts to feel like excess. It's about that too much of a good thing feeling.
I'm starting to see how using plethora correctly can add a layer of sophistication to my descriptions. It's a much more nuanced way of expressing abundance than just saying a lot.
It's about choosing words that convey not just the quantity, but also the impact of that quantity.
This is making me realize how much I've taken these words for granted, what other advanced words are hiding in plain sight, waiting to be understood.
Let's delve into one that's often misused in discussions about facts and information.
Factoid.
Factoid. This one seems pretty straightforward. I always thought it just meant a small or trivial fact.
That's how it's commonly used, but its original meaning is a bit more nuanced, even controversial. The term factoid was actually coined to describe something that appears to be a fact, but is actually false or unsubstantiated.
Right, really? That's a completely different meaning.
That's the risk with using factoid in its original sense. It implies a degree of skepticism or even doubt about the validity of the information being presented. It can be a way of highlighting that something may sound like a fact, but it hasn't actually been proven true.
This is a perfect example of how language can evolve and shift in meaning over time. It's important to be aware of both the common usage and the original intent behind a word. You're absolutely right. Language is a living, breathing thing that constantly adapts and changes. Our goal is to be aware of those changes and use words in a way that is both accurate and effective.
So how can we use factoid in a way that doesn't accidentally spread misinformation?
If you're unsure of the accuracy of a piece of information, it's best to avoid using factoid altogether. You could say something like, here's an interesting tidbit, or this might be a bit of trivia, but this avoids any implication that the information might be false.
That's really helpful advice. Okay, bring on the next advanced word. I'm ready to conquer some more linguistic complexities.
Let's tackle a word that often causes confusion in discussions and debates. Moot.
Moot? I've always thought of this word as meaning irrelevant or pointless. Like that argument is moot because the decision has already been made.
That's a common understanding, but it's not entirely accurate. While moot can relate to something that's no longer relevant, its original meaning is a bit more nuanced. It originally referred to a matter that is open for debate or discussion.
So if a topic is moot, it's not necessarily pointless. It just means there's room for further discussion or consideration.
Precisely. Imagine a legal case where the circumstances change, making the original point of contention no longer relevant to the outcome. The issue might be considered moot, not because it was unimportant, but because it's no longer central to the case.
That's a really helpful clarification. So it's less about the topic being irrelevant and more about its significance having shifted or diminished.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that the context has changed, and the original point of debate may no longer be the primary focus.
I'm definitely feeling more enlightened than moot after tackling that one. What other advanced word adventures await us?
Let's wrap up our exploration of advanced words with a pair that often trips people up: infer and imply.
Infer and imply, the classic conundrum. I know these words are related to drawing conclusions, but I often mix them up.
It's a common confusion. The key difference lies in who is doing the action. The speaker or writer implies something, meaning they suggest or hint at something without stating it directly. The listener or reader infers something, meaning they draw a conclusion based on what is implied.
So if I were to say, it's getting late, I might be implying that it's time to go, even though I haven't explicitly said so.
Exactly. And if you, as the listener, understood my implication, you would have correctly inferred my meaning.
I see. So it's a two-way street. The speaker sends out a subtle signal, and the listener picks up on that signal and draws a conclusion.
Precisely. It's like a subtle dance of communication where meaning is conveyed through suggestion and interpretation.
This distinction is so subtle, but it's crucial for clear communication. Misusing these words can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings.
Absolutely. Mastering the difference between infer and imply is essential for navigating conversations and interpreting written texts accurately. It's about understanding both sides of the communication equation.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It's amazing how much depth and complexity there is to these seemingly simple words.
And we've only just scratched the surface. But I hope you're starting to see how understanding the nuances of language can empower you to communicate with greater clarity and precision.
I'm definitely feeling a lot more confident about using these words correctly. It's like a whole new world of linguistic possibilities has opened up.
And that's the beauty of language learning. It's an ongoing journey of discovery and refinement. Are you ready for a quick challenge to test your newfound knowledge?
Absolutely. Bring it on. All right. Hit me with that word challenge. I'm ready to put my knowledge to the test.
Okay. Let's see if you can recall the true meaning of nonplussed Without looking back at our discussion, take a moment to think about it.
Okay, no peeking. I think I've got it. Nonplussed means to be surprised and confused, almost to the point of speechlessness. It's like that feeling of being completely thrown off guard and not knowing how to react.
That's absolutely correct. You've successfully decoded nonplussed. It seems our deep dive has truly expanded your vocabulary horizons.
I'm feeling pretty proud of myself right now. This whole experience has been eye-opening. I've realized that using words correctly isn't just about sounding smart. It's about communicating effectively and ensuring that my message is understood.
It's about wielding the power of language with precision and care. Choosing words that accurately reflect not only what we want to say, but also the subtle nuances of meaning we wish to convey.
You know, it's funny because I used to think that vocabulary was just about memorizing definitions. But this deep dive has shown me that it's so much more than that. It's about understanding the history, the etymology, the subtle shades of meaning that make each word unique.
It's about recognizing that words are not static, but dynamic. They evolve over time, their meanings shifting and adapting to reflect the changing world around us.
And that's what makes language so fascinating. It's a living, breathing entity that connects us to the past, informs our present, and shapes our future.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to continue exploring the fascinating world of language. Pay attention to the words you use, the words you encounter, and the way they impact your understanding of the world.
I know I will. This has been such a rewarding journey. I'm walking away with a newfound appreciation for the power of words and the importance of using them correctly.
Remember, language is a gift, a tool that allows us to connect, create, and inspire. Let's use it wisely.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Happy wordsmithing. Okay, so let's be real for a sec. Small talk, right? It can be like the most awkward thing ever. Like when you're stuck in a situation and you know you should be chatting, but your mind just goes blank. Anyone else? Feel me on that. But get this. What if I told you that this deep dive could actually turn that dread into pure confidence? And we're going to do it using a source you'd never expect. A video script, get this, for people learning English.
I know, right? Sounds a little out there. But seriously, this script is full of stuff that goes way deeper than just language. It's like a secret masterclass in how humans connect, hidden inside an English lesson.
Okay, I gotta admit, when you first mentioned this source, I was kind of like, how can something for total beginners help someone who's already fluent?
That's fair, totally. But the cool thing here is, by breaking small talk down into these simple steps, it actually shows you the psychology behind how we connect. Like, it's a cheat sheet for building rapport, even if you never needed help with English in the first place.
So it's more about understanding the, deeper game, not just memorizing lines.
Exactly. For example, the script makes a big deal about greetings and weather talk, stuff we might think is just filler.
Yeah, I always thought that stuff was kind of pointless.
Right. But they actually serve a super important purpose. Like, humans are literally wired to bond over shared experiences.
Okay.
Even something as simple as complaining about the heat or, whatever the weather's doing.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can see that.
It creates that instant common ground, that we're in this together feeling, which is huge for starting any kind of connection.
Wow, that's actually so true. I never thought about it that way.
And the script goes even further. Instead of those boring old greetings like, "Hi, how are you?" it gives you phrases that fit the specific situation so you get a better response.
Oh, I like where this is going. Give me an example.
So say you're at a party. Instead of that robotic, "Hi, how are you?" try something like, "What brings you here?"
Way more interesting, right?
Way more. It's like you're actually interested, not just saying words. Exactly. It shows you're paying attention and they actually get to share something about themselves. It's what they call a strong bid in, like conversation analysis stuff. Each thing we say is a bid to connect.
Ooh, I'm digging this bidding concept. So we're all just out here trying to make the strongest bid to connect.
Totally. And this script is giving us all the winning moves. Another one they have is, instead of just saying nice weather, you could say something like, "This weather's crazy, right?"
It's like inviting the other person in on the joke. I like it.
Yeah.
So it's making small talk feel, less robotic. But what really stood out to me was the role-playing part.
Ah, yes. That's where the magic really happens. The people who made this script, they get it. Knowing the right words isn't enough. You got to actually practice using them. And role-playing is the best way to do that.
But what if you don't have someone to practice with? Isn't that kind of, weird to do alone?
For sure. But you can totally do it in your head. It's called mental rehearsal. Basically, you just picture yourself in different situations.
Hold on. So you're saying, By just imagining myself rocking these small talk moments, I'm actually getting better at it in real life.
You got it. Might sound a little strange, but neuroscientists have found that when you rehearse something mentally, your brain fires up the same way it does when you're actually doing the thing.
No way. That's so cool. It's like training your brain for social situations, like a cheat code for confidence. I'm already feeling less terrified about networking events or, just parties in general.
It's crazy, right? How powerful our brains are. Like, this script really shows you how to use that power to, level up your social skills.
I like that, level up. So we've talked about greetings, weather talk, even practicing in your head. What else does this script have up its sleeve?
Okay, so one thing that really impressed me was the questions. They go way beyond those typical boring questions like, where are you from? Or what do you do? The usual suspects.
Yeah, those can be so snooze fest sometimes.
Right. Instead, they give you all these questions that are actually interesting, designed to, spark real conversations.
Okay, I'm all about those real conversations. Tell me more. Give me the good stuff.
So instead of asking, what do you do? Which can feel kind of like a job interview, They suggest asking, what do you like to do for fun?
I mean, that's a classic for a reason, right? It gets people talking about what they're actually passionate about.
Exactly. It's like you're inviting them to show you their real selves, not just their LinkedIn profile. And if you really want to go deeper, you could try something like, what's the most interesting thing you've done lately?
Ooh, I like that one. It's like a sneak peek into their adventures. You might even discover you have some cool stuff in common.
Totally. Plus, it shows you're actually curious about them, not just trying to fill the silence. And they even have specific questions for different situations. Like, if you're at a dinner party, you could ask, have you tried any good restaurants lately?
Perfect. Everyone loves talking about food. Instant conversation starter, right there.
It's true. It's something we can all relate to, like enjoying a good meal. Okay, so we've covered greetings, weather talk, asking interesting questions, even mental rehearsal. But what about when you're ready to, make your escape? Does the script help with that too?
Yeah, like how do you end a conversation without being rude?
Don't worry, they got you covered. They have a bunch of different closing phrases depending on the situation. From a simple, it was nice talking to you, to something more like, hey, we should grab coffee sometime.
Oh, I love that they include those follow-up suggestions.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really do click with someone, and it's good to have a way to, keep things going.
Exactly. It shows you're confident and interested, which is always a good look. And even if they can't meet up, it still leaves a good impression. They'll remember you as someone who actually wanted to connect.
Yeah, it's like planting a seed, right? You never know where those initial conversations might lead. What about those times when you just need a quick, casual exit, though, like you're running late or something?
No problem. They have those too. They suggest things like, catch you later or have a great day. Those are perfect for keeping it light and friendly without feeling like you have to, hang around forever.
Okay, so whether you're aiming for a lifelong friendship or just a quick chat, it sounds like this script has given us a whole toolbox for navigating the social world.
Yeah. It's like they took all the guesswork out of small talk and gave us a clear path to follow. It's pretty amazing.
And what's so cool is that this script, even though it's for people learning English, it actually shows us some really deep things about human connections, like a reminder that we all want to feel understood, even in those little everyday conversations.
So true. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so valuable. We're not just learning phrases, we're learning about what makes us human and how even a short conversation can make a difference, create a ripple effect.
It's like we're seeing the world through a whole new lens now, right?
Yeah.
And that brings us to the best part, putting it all into practice. We've talked about a lot today, the different phases of small talk, how to make a bid for connection, even practicing in your head. But now it's your turn, dear listener. Take these ideas and make them your own.
Yes. This is where the real transformation happens. We've given you the tools. Now it's up to you to use them. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. The goal isn't to become some kind of small talk robot.
Exactly. Be yourself, be genuine, and use these techniques to connect with people in a real way. So let's recap the top 3 things we've learned from this unexpected deep dive into, mastering small talk. First, small talk isn't just random. There's a structure you can follow to make those conversations flow.
Second, the words you use actually matter. This script has given us tons of phrases that are interesting, thoughtful, and perfect for different situations.
And third, practice, practice, practice. Whether you're practicing in your head or even role-playing with a friend, the more you do it, the more confident and natural you'll become.
It really is freeing, right? Knowing you have these tools, it takes away that fear of messing up or saying the wrong thing.
For sure. It's like having this, I don't know, secret weapon for social situations. And honestly, the biggest thing I'm taking away from this is small talk doesn't have to be something you dread. It can actually be like fun, a way to connect with people,
100%. What about you? What's sticking with you from all this? What did you find most helpful from looking at this script?
It's funny. I think what resonated most was realizing that everyone, even people who seem super outgoing, they've probably felt that awkwardness too. This script shows that small talk is a skill, like something you can learn and get better at, just like anything else.
Right. It's not like some people are born knowing how to do it and others aren't.
Exactly. It takes so much pressure off. You can just approach those conversations with curiosity, like a little game. Just see what happens.
I love that. A little game. It really can be like an adventure,
Yeah.
discovering something new about someone, even if it's just a tiny thing.
And it reminds you that even those small moments, a quick chat, a smile, they can all make a difference. It's like we're all connected in this big web, and every conversation adds to that,
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into, well, the surprisingly interesting world of small talk, I want to leave you with this. Think about the next time you are in a situation where you know there's going to be some small talk. Maybe it's a party or a work event, even just grabbing coffee. What are you most excited to try out from all the stuff we talked about?
Such a good question.
Yeah.
And hey, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Just be yourself, be genuine, and see what happens. You might be surprised how fun and even meaningful those small conversations can be. So go out there and conquer the world of small talk. We believe in you.
Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today we're going to be exploring, well, actually, your English learning journey using a script for a video for English language learners. It's going to be like a deep dive within a deep dive, really. So no matter where you're at, beginner, advanced, somewhere in between, there should be something here for you.
Yeah, I think it's so cool how this script uses like real stories from other people learning English, to like inspire. It's like we're all on this journey together,
Totally. And speaking of journeys, the script starts off by asking this big question, right? What made you want to learn English in the first place? The why behind your adventure, basically. They give this example of a learner, Anna, and her goal was she just wanted to watch TV, without subtitles. And what I thought was so cool about that was it was totally, coming from her, she just wanted to do it, not because someone told her she had to or anything.
Right.
Those are the best reasons,
Right.
when it comes from inside.
Yeah, for sure. Knowing your why can really make a difference, I think, especially when things get tough, When you hit a wall, you just don't feel like studying. It's like having a compass to keep you, heading in the right direction.
I love that, the compass. So I'm curious, what was your why, when you started out? Take a second to think about that. It's worth, revisiting it as you keep going, too. Now, the script also digs into how, where you are can affect your learning. It gets that not everyone can be, surrounded by English speakers all the time, but it kind of challenges us to get creative.
Yeah. This story about Raj really stuck with me. He lives in this village where literally no one speaks English. And so he basically turned his whole house into this learning tool, sticky notes everywhere using English for everyday stuff. It just proves you don't have to be in some English speaking country to learn it well.
It's amazing, right? Talk about resourcefulness. He didn't wait for the perfect situation. He just made it himself. And this actually leads perfectly into what the script talks about next. How to, take all that time we waste and turn it into learning time.
Oh yeah, like when you're scrolling on your phone or whatever and it's not even fun anymore.
Exactly. But imagine if you could use that time to learn instead. The script mentions Maria, and she would spend 30 minutes every night on, I think it was TikTok, and she swapped that for English learning videos, and guess what? In just a couple of weeks, her vocabulary, exploded.
Wow.
See? Totally doable. And what's even cooler is you can do this throughout your day, right? When you're commuting, waiting in line, even just doing chores. You can listen to podcasts, use apps, just sneak in little bits of English here and there.
Yeah. Just make it a part of your life,
Yeah.
The more you can do that, the more natural it all feels.
Exactly. The script then kind of switches gears and talks about common mistakes that can, slow you down. And this is where I think your expertise is going to be so helpful. One of the first things it mentions is getting too hung up on grammar, to the point where you're not even really speaking. It's easy to just memorize all the rules, but language is really about talking to people, right?
Absolutely. Grammar's important, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. But sometimes I think it gets too much focus, it's more important to be able to speak fluently and confidently, even if you mess up a little. It's about finding that balance, I think. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with that. You could know all the grammar in the world, but if you can't have a conversation, what's the point, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like you learn how to play an instrument, but then you never actually play any music.
Exactly. You just practice scales all day long.
Mm.
Okay, so the script's next point, I think this is something we've all dealt with, being scared to make mistakes. I mean, every language learner goes through that, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I think it's so important to, like, change how we think about mistakes. They're not like failures. They're actually like feedback.
Yeah.
Each mistake is a chance to learn and get better.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It takes the pressure off, And this kind of leads into the third mistake they talk about in the script, which is not practicing regularly. We've all been there, right? Like crazy study sessions and then nothing for weeks.
Yeah, I've totally been there. It's always better to do a little bit every day than a lot all at once.
Yeah.
It's like you wouldn't go to the gym once a month for 8 hours and expect to see results. You got to be consistent.
So true. Short, consistent workouts, that's the key. Like the script mentions this learner who went from like these huge study sessions every now and then to just doing 30 minutes a day every day. And they saw way more progress.
It's amazing, right? How much difference just a little bit each day can make.
Yeah.
Our brains, they actually learn better that way too, through repetition and like slow exposure, not cramming.
So instead of trying to do it all at once, just find little ways to fit English into your day, right?
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and look at what the script says about, learning English if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Yeah.
Which can feel like a huge obstacle, but the script has some pretty encouraging examples.
Yeah, I was really interested in that part.
It comes back to what we were saying before about creating that immersive environment, even without actually being around English speakers. And technology can really help with this, right?
Totally.
Like apps for language exchange, online forums, even streaming services with subtitles.
There's so much out there.
Right. Like in the script, they talk about Marco from Spain, and he basically made like his own little English world at home, reading news in English, watching English YouTubers, even talking to friends online from other countries.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's like bringing the English-speaking world to you.
You don't even have to get on a plane.
Exactly. Which leads perfectly into the script's like final challenge, focus on output.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just understand English. You got to use it, by speaking or writing.
Yeah, that's where the real learning happens, I think. Getting out there and actually using the language. I know it can be scary at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets.
The script suggests a few things you can try, like recording yourself speaking and then listening back to see what you can improve.
Well, that's a good one.
Or joining a speaking group, or even just writing like a short paragraph in English every day.
I like that.
Just little things to get you practicing,
The key is to find what works for you and then make it a habit. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Even 5 minutes a day can make a difference in the long run.
And as we start wrapping up this deep dive here, I think one of the most important things to remember is learning English, it's a journey, right? And every little thing you do, it brings you closer to your goals.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. I mean, we've talked about so much, right? Like from that whole why thing to making your own little English world. But what really sticks out to me is how much the script is all about, like, doing stuff.
Oh, yeah, totally. You can't just sit there and like, hope you'll learn English.
Right. You got to get out there and use it. And remember how we talked about making mistakes? The script wants us to think about those differently, too.
Yeah, they're not like the end of the world.
They're actually how you get better.
Like little stepping stones.
I love that. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive into learning English, I have one question for you. And it kind of goes back to that output thing we were talking about. What's one small step you're going to take this week to like actually use your English?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Could be anything, really. Record yourself talking for a minute, write an email in English, even just chat with someone online.
It doesn't have to be this big, huge thing.
Exactly. Just something small but consistent.
Like we were saying before, 5 minutes a day, it all adds up.
We've explored a ton of tips today and heard some pretty inspiring stories. I bet there are a few that like really resonated with you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So think about those and how you can use them in your own learning. And remember, learning English, it should be fun, not a chore.
Totally. It's an adventure.
Embrace those challenges, you know, celebrate how far you've come and never stop exploring. Happy learning, everyone.
All right, get ready because we're going deep deep into some really cool English expressions.
Yeah.
We're talking about the kind of stuff from our source, advanced everyday English, that, can really take your communication skills to the next level.
I think what's really neat about this particular collection is that it's not just about, trying to sound impressive or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's more about understanding the subtle nuances of the language and how, these expressions can really add depth and richness and even a touch of humor to your conversations.
Humor. Okay, now we're talking. So is this guide like a secret decoder ring for the English language?
You could say that, yeah. Take the phrase off the record, for example. Most people, they think it just means confidentiality, but there's so much more to it than that. I mean, if you really think about it, it can create, some pretty interesting dynamics.
Interesting.
Especially when you're talking about power and trust.
Okay, so how does off the record become about power dynamics?
Well, just think about this. The source gives an example of a mortgage consultant who advises a client to go to their own bank for better interest rates.
Okay.
But only off the record. Now, why would they do that? Are they genuinely trying to help the client? Or is there something else going on there?
Right.
Maybe a way to undermine their own company.
I mean, that's a good point. Suddenly it just gets a lot more complicated.
It does, yeah.
Who benefits the most from this kind of off-the-record advice?
Right.
Is it genuine goodwill or is it a power play?
Yeah. And that's what I think makes these advanced expressions so interesting.
Okay.
They operate on multiple levels.
Right.
And they can reveal a lot about the speaker's intentions.
This is like linguistic chess.
It is.
All right, this deep dive is blowing my mind already. But let's move on to a word that I think we often use without fully appreciating it.
Okay.
And that word is outgoing. We all know it describes someone who's, sociable, extroverted.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's more to it than that.
There is a lot more to it. Outgoing can also refer to expenses, right? Like if you're, calculating the outgoing costs on a property.
Right.
Or it can also describe like a departing official.
Interesting.
Like an outgoing president. Picture a job ad. Like they're looking for an outgoing sales assistant.
Yeah.
And then in another situation, picture a town saying farewell to their outgoing president.
Yeah. Wow. Very different situations. It's all about context, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
The same word can completely change its meaning depending on the situation.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure we're using these words correctly?
Well, that's where, continuous learning comes in. Brushing up, as the source calls it.
Right.
It's important, whether it's, language skills or a specific subject or just staying up to date on current events. Brushing up is what keeps our knowledge fresh and relevant.
So it's not about just cramming in all this information and then, calling it a day.
No.
It's about updating, refining what we know.
Yeah.
I like that.
It is, yeah. It's like a much more sustainable approach.
It really is. Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking of approaches, let's get into the world of touchy subjects.
Okay.
And people. You know, we all know someone who's a bit sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Takes criticism personally, gets offended easily.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm guessing there's more to this word than just, someone who's easily upset.
There is. The example that the source gives contrasts touchy with thick-skinned.
Okay.
And it suggests a whole spectrum of emotional resilience. We all have different thresholds for what we find, offensive or hurtful.
Right.
And navigating those differences can be tricky.
It's like we're all walking on eggshells sometimes.
Yeah, it is a bit like that.
So is being touchy always a bad thing?
Well, that's a good question. And I think it's one that we can explore further as we, dig into all these expressions.
I like it. Okay, let's shift gears for a minute and talk about something that can be both, comforting and incredibly frustrating.
All right.
Cliches.
Cliches, yes.
Those phrases we've all heard a million times.
A million times, yeah.
They've kind of lost all their meaning. Like I can practically hear a football manager saying, "We gave 110% out there."
Yeah, exactly. Why do they persist? Why do we keep using them?
That's a good question.
I think part of it is that they provide a sense of familiarity and comfort. It's like a well-worn path in our brains, easy to follow,
Right.
but not very exciting.
So how do we avoid sounding like a broken record? Do we need to ban cliches from our vocabulary?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's one we'll definitely be getting into as we continue this deep dive.
Okay, good.
But first, I want to lay out another really versatile phrase.
Ooh, lay it on me. I like this. Lay out.
Yeah. To lay out It can mean, presenting information clearly.
Right.
Like laying out proposals in a booklet.
Makes sense.
It can also describe like designing a space, like laying out a garden.
Okay.
And of course, it can also mean, reluctantly spending money.
Oh, I've been there.
Like when you have to lay out a small fortune for unexpected car repairs.
Oh, tell me about it. So laying out can be about like strategic planning, but also, the begrudging act of spending money you weren't planning on spending.
Yeah, exactly. It covers quite a lot.
Very adaptable phrase.
It is.
Sometimes I feel like a bit of a dog's body, especially in, the grand scheme of things.
Oh, the dog's body, yeah.
Running around doing those little tasks that nobody else wants to do.
Well, our source actually has this fascinating story about Ted Davies.
Okay.
Now, he started his career as a football club. Dog's body, cleaning boots, doing odd jobs.
Interesting.
Now,
Okay.
Ted, he didn't let his, humble beginnings define him.
Good for him.
He used those experiences to learn and grow,
Right.
eventually becoming a successful football manager.
Wow.
It's a good reminder. We shouldn't underestimate the value of those, even those seemingly insignificant tasks.
That's inspiring, actually. Like they were almost laying the foundation for his, later success. Maybe we shouldn't dismiss the dog's body tasks so quickly.
No, I don't think we should.
Hidden opportunities there.
All right, well, let's talk about something that is so crucial in the world of business.
Okay.
Breaking even.
Breaking even.
Yeah.
The holy grail. Right.
It is for a lot of businesses, yeah.
It's that moment when your income matches your expenses.
Exactly. The source gives an example of a business hoping to break even in its first year,
Okay.
which, can be a tall order. It signifies stability.
Right.
And then, once you've achieved that balance, then you can start thinking about growth and expansion.
Yeah. It's like you've built a solid foundation.
Yeah.
Now you can add a few floors. But what happens when we're so busy, building that we end up with a huge backlog?
Oh, the dreaded backlog. Yes,
It can really feel overwhelming,
it can.
whether it's paperwork or, patients waiting to see the doctor or even just our own to-do list. It never seems to end.
That's true.
So backlogs can be everywhere, not just at work.
They really can.
But I mean, are they always a bad thing?
Well, it depends. I mean, they can be a sign that you're in high demand,
Right.
but they could also be a sign that something needs to change.
Okay.
Maybe you need to streamline your processes,
Makes sense.
delegate tasks,
Right.
or even just say no more often.
It's like a wake-up call.
It can be, yeah.
We need to reevaluate how we're managing our time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to another communication skill that I think is often overlooked,
All right.
and that is going beyond just getting the gist of something.
Oh, yeah, getting the gist. I think it's like, reading those spark notes for a book.
Yeah.
You understand the basic plot, but you miss all those nuances.
Right, the character development.
Exactly.
The beautiful language. It's like you're skimming the surface.
Yeah, you are.
You might see a couple of pretty fish,
Right.
but you're missing the whole ecosystem down there. So how do we move beyond getting the gist
Yeah.
and really engage with, the information?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One that I think we should explore a little further as we continue our deep dive into advanced everyday English.
Let's do it.
But first, I think we should shift our attention to something a little more exciting. The world of the up and coming.
Ooh, yes. The up-and-comers. I like that.
Those individuals or those trends that are poised for, greatness. This source gives a great example. Young politicians who are already skilled at, navigating legislation, foreign languages.
Wow. It's like they're already fluent in the language of power.
They are. They're the rising stars.
How do we identify these future leaders?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
They often possess, a unique blend of talent, vision, and this willingness to challenge the status quo.
It's like they're already writing the next chapter of history
Yeah, they are.
while the current chapter is still being written. But is it always about being bold and disruptive?
That's a great question. And it's one that we will delve into further as we continue our exploration of advanced everyday English.
All right. Sounds good.
So we were talking about these young, up-and-coming politicians.
Right. Those rising stars.
But, up-and-coming isn't just limited to people. It can apply to, trends and ideas as well, things that are, gaining momentum.
Right. On the verge of becoming the next big thing.
Yeah.
So how do we spot these trends? Is there like a secret formula or something?
I wish there was, but I think it's a matter of, paying attention, keeping your finger on the pulse, so to speak. Reading, observing, talking to people, really immersing yourself in the world around you.
So it's about being curious, staying informed.
Exactly. And also, not being afraid to think outside the box, challenge those conventional assumptions.
Okay, so be curious, challenge assumptions.
Yeah.
Got it. Now let's talk about something that can be a little bit tricky.
Right.
The whole idea of, framing our thoughts.
Framing, yeah.
How we use language to shape the way that people perceive our message.
Because it really does matter, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Even those seemingly simple choices like, active versus passive voice or, choosing specific adjectives, it can have a huge impact.
It can. The example that the source gives is the phrase up in the air.
Okay, up in the air.
On the surface, it just means, uncertain.
Right, like plans for the weekend that haven't been finalized.
Exactly. But the way we use it can convey a whole range of emotions.
Right.
Imagine like a business owner telling their employees that their jobs are up in the air.
Oh, yeah.
Because of financial difficulties.
Oh, that takes on a whole new meaning.
It does. It's suddenly loaded with anxiety, uncertainty.
So it's not just the words themselves.
No.
It's how we use them.
Yeah, it's about creating a mood.
Okay. So much to think about. All right, another expression that we all encounter from time to time, and it's not always pleasant.
Right.
To rub someone up the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, we all know that person.
Ugh, yes. That person who just, I don't know, they just get under your skin.
They do.
And they might not even mean to.
Right.
But something about them, just rubs us the wrong way.
So why is that? Why do some people have that effect?
It's a good question.
Is it a personality clash? A difference in values?
Who knows?
The phrase itself, though, rubbing someone up the wrong way, really does suggest a kind of fundamental incompatibility.
Right, yeah.
Two gears grinding against each other.
Oof, yeah. Creating that friction.
Yeah, and friction can, generate heat.
Ooh, I see where you're going with this.
And rubbing someone up the wrong way, well, that can lead to conflict.
Yeah.
Resentment.
Right.
Even like a breakdown in communication.
Okay. I'm going to try to be more mindful about how I'm rubbing people.
Yeah.
And speaking of breakdowns, let's talk about that moment when we finally reach our breaking point. The final straw or the last straw.
Yes, it's that one event or action that just pushes us over the edge.
Right. Like, I don't know, you've been putting up with a lot of nonsense.
You have, yeah.
And then suddenly there's this one thing and that's it, I'm done.
Exactly. You've had enough. It's like that old saying, the straw that broke the camel's back.
It really is. So how do we know when we've reached that point?
That's a really good question, an important one too. And I think it's something we should talk about more as we continue our deep dive into advanced everyday English.
Okay, sounds good.
But first, I want to focus on another really crucial communication skill.
Okay.
The ability to weigh up different sides of a situation before making a judgment.
Weigh up. Okay, what does that mean, to weigh up something?
Well, it means taking a step back.
Okay.
Gathering information.
Right.
Analyzing the pros and cons.
Looking at it from different angles.
Exactly. And, considering different perspectives before you actually reach a conclusion.
It's like being a judge. You have to examine all the evidence.
You do.
Before making a ruling.
And that process of weighing up, it's so important.
I can see that.
Especially in those really complex situations.
Yeah, where there's no easy answer.
Yeah, it's about being thoughtful and deliberate.
Okay, but sometimes even after we've, weighed up all the options, we still need more information.
Right.
So how do we draw out that information from someone who might not be so willing to share?
Drawing out information. That is a skill.
It is, yeah.
You need finesse, you need strategy.
It's like being a detective.
It is a bit like that. You have to ask the right questions.
Right.
Create a sense of trust.
Okay.
Be patient.
Let the information kind of come out naturally.
Exactly. And that's such a valuable skill.
It is, yeah.
In all aspects of life, from personal relationships to professional negotiations.
It's about connection.
It is.
All right. Well, sometimes I have to admit I feel completely baffled.
Baffled, yeah.
By certain situations, certain concepts. It's like my brain just hits a wall.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Those baffled moments.
What is going on?
Exactly. Like you're just lost in a maze.
Right. With no way out. But is being baffled always a bad thing?
That's a great question. And it's one that we can explore further as we delve deeper into advanced everyday English.
Okay, let's do it.
But first, I think we should shift our focus a little bit and talk about the importance of sometimes keeping a low profile.
Keeping a low profile. Okay, I like that.
Yeah. It's about, blending in.
Right.
Flying under the radar, avoiding unnecessary attention.
So why would someone choose to do that?
Is it weakness? Or is
Right.
it strategy?
Ooh, good question. So when is it a good idea to keep a low profile?
And when should we, stand up and be noticed?
Those are good questions.
They are. And they're questions we'll definitely address as we continue to explore advanced everyday English.
Okay, good.
But for now, I want to dive into a phrase that I think we all relate to, especially in today's, crazy busy world.
Uh-oh, I know where this is going.
The dreaded backlog.
Oh, the backlog, that ever-growing mountain of stuff.
Yes.
Emails, tasks, just responsibilities.
It never ends, does it?
It really doesn't.
So the question is, are backlogs always a bad thing?
That's a good point. Maybe they're a sign that we're, in high demand.
Could be.
We're just so popular we can't keep up.
Right, that's one way to look at it. But they could also be a sign that something needs to change.
Right.
Maybe you need to, streamline those processes,
Yeah.
delegate some tasks,
Okay.
or even just say no more often.
It's about setting boundaries.
It is, yeah.
So sometimes a backlog is a wake-up call.
It can be.
We need to reevaluate how we're spending our time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of reevaluating, let's talk about a concept that's particularly relevant in the business world.
All right.
Breaking even.
Breaking even. Yeah, the dream, right.
For any entrepreneur.
It is. It's that point when your income finally matches your expenses.
Exactly.
No profit, but no loss either.
You're in the black.
You are. The source gives the example of a business hoping to break even in its first year, which, can be a huge accomplishment for a new business. It's a sign of stability.
It is, yeah.
And it kind of lays the groundwork for future success.
So it's like you've weathered the storm.
Yeah.
You've reached safe harbor. But what happens when we face, setbacks?
Right.
Challenges. How do we push through and come through those tough times?
That is a really great question, and it's one that I think we should spend some time discussing as we delve deeper into advanced everyday English.
I like it.
But for now, I want to shift our focus to something a little more extraordinary, the realm of the unheard of.
Ooh, okay, the unheard of. I like that.
Yes, it refers to something so rare.
Right.
Or so unusual that it defies our expectations.
Like stumbling upon, I don't know, like a hidden oasis
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the middle of the desert.
It's a moment of surprise,
Yeah.
and wonder. It challenges our assumptions.
Okay. So how do we respond to the unheard of? Do we embrace it? Or do we, kind of cling to those familiar ways of thinking?
I think that's a really interesting question, and honestly, it's one that we could probably spend hours debating.
I bet.
But for now, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a phrase that often walks this, fine line between humor and hurt feelings. To give someone stick.
To give someone stick.
Okay. It basically means to tease
Right.
or make fun of someone.
Right.
But it can so easily backfire if you're not careful.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, those friends who they love to poke fun at you,
Yeah.
but sometimes their jokes hit a little too close to home.
They do, yeah.
So how do we master the art of, giving stick without causing offense?
That is the million-dollar question. It all comes down to understanding your audience.
Right.
Their sense of humor, the context.
Right.
Sometimes, a little bit of teasing can strengthen a bond,
Sure.
but sometimes it can create, tension and resentment.
Yeah, it's a delicate dance.
It is.
Okay. Speaking of delicate, let's
Yeah.
talk about a phrase that captures that feeling of being stuck in a state of limbo. Okay.
Up in the air.
Up in the air.
Yes.
That frustrating feeling of not knowing what's going to happen.
Right. The source mentions it in the context of, a business decision
Right.
that hasn't been finalized yet.
Okay.
And it leaves everybody, feeling a bit uncertain, a bit anxious.
Yeah.
It's like waiting for those exam results.
Ugh.
You're on edge. You're anticipating the outcome, but you have no control over it.
You're just stuck
You are.
in this holding pattern.
Yeah.
So is there anything we can do about that?
Well, that's another really good question, and it's one that we can unpack further as we explore advanced everyday English.
Okay. Sounds good.
But for now, I want to shift our attention to another situation that can be equally unsettling,
Okay.
being out of one's depth.
Ooh, I've been there.
It's like being thrown in the deep end
Right.
when you don't know how to swim.
Exactly.
You're surrounded by all these experts,
Yeah.
and they're speaking a language that you barely understand.
Oh, I know that feeling. But is it always a negative experience?
Well, that's a question worth exploring.
Yeah, it is.
But for now, I want to talk about the more practical side of things.
Yeah.
How do we navigate those moments when we feel out of our depth?
Right.
Do we try to, fake it till we make it?
Yeah.
Or do we admit our limitations?
And seek help.
Exactly. Ask for guidance. But, we shouldn't forget about those who are often tasked with those, less glamorous jobs.
Right.
The dog's bodies of the world.
Yeah, the dog's body.
Our source reminds us that even those seemingly, menial roles
Right.
can be such valuable learning experiences.
Okay.
Remember the story of, Ted Davies, the football club dog's body,
Yeah.
who went on to become a successful manager.
Right. He climbed the ladder.
He did. And, those early experiences, even though they weren't glamorous,
Right.
they gave him such a strong foundation.
Okay.
And a really deep understanding of, how the organization worked.
It's like those tasks were like secret training missions.
They were preparing him for bigger things.
Yeah. Maybe those less glamorous jobs are just hidden opportunities.
They could be.
All right. Speaking of opportunities, let's talk about a phrase that captures that feeling of finally grasping a complex concept, to get one's head around something.
Yes, that aha moment.
Yes. When the fog clears,
Yeah.
it all makes sense.
It clicks.
It does. So how do we get to that point? Is it intelligence? Persistence?
Yeah.
Just dumb luck?
Another great question, and I think it's one that deserves a lot more discussion.
Okay.
But for now, I want to shift gears a little bit.
All right.
And talk about a phrase that really does require a leap of faith
Okay.
to give someone the benefit of the doubt.
Ooh. The benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Choosing to trust someone, even when you have those nagging doubts.
You do.
So when is it wise to do that?
When should we trust our gut?
Right. Proceed with caution.
Yeah. Our source highlights the importance of, extending trust, but also warns us against being, too naive,
Right.
too easily manipulated. It's like walking a tightrope.
It is.
You need balance, but you also need to be aware of the potential pitfalls.
Okay. Finding that sweet spot. That's tough. Speaking of tricky, let's talk about a phrase that's all about, playful teasing,
All right.
lighthearted banter,
Okay.
to take the mickey out of someone.
Oh, take the mickey.
Yeah, that's a very British expression.
It is.
It's about poking fun,
Yeah.
but not being mean.
No, not malicious.
Right. So how do we walk that line?
Well, like any kind of humor.
Right.
It's about being mindful of the other person's sensitivities.
Right.
And, not crossing that line into bullying or cruelty.
So it's like friendly sparring.
It is.
You're aiming for those playful jabs,
Yeah.
not a knockout punch. All right. Speaking of time, let's talk about a phrase that captures that feeling of being completely absorbed,
Okay.
to lose track of time.
Oh, lose track of time.
We've all been there.
We have.
You're engrossed in a good book,
Right.
or you're having this amazing conversation,
Yeah.
and then boom, suddenly hours have gone by.
They just disappear.
It's like stepping into a time warp.
It is.
You emerge feeling refreshed, but also kind of disoriented.
Right. Like, where did the time go?
Exactly. But is losing track of time always a good thing? Or is it sometimes a sign that, we're avoiding something important?
That is a really good question. And to be honest, I think it's one that requires a lot more thought and consideration.
Yeah.
But for now, I want to shift our attention to another aspect of communication.
Okay.
The unintended consequences of our actions.
Ooh, the unintended consequences.
Because sometimes, we say or do things
Right.
without fully realizing the impact they might have.
Right. Like those ripple effects.
Exactly. And, the word unwittingly captures that perfectly.
Okay. Unwittingly.
Doing something without realizing the full consequences.
Oh.
The source gives an example of, someone unwittingly leaving another person stranded
Oh, no.
in a really chaotic situation.
Well, that's a tough one.
It is, yeah. A classic case of, good intentions gone wrong.
It really is. So how do we avoid those kinds of, unwitting blunders?
Well, I think that's a question we need to delve into a bit deeper.
Okay.
As we explore the world of advanced everyday English.
Sounds good.
But first, I want to focus on a phrase that really does capture that feeling of finally letting go.
Okay.
Of something that's been weighing on our minds.
Right.
To get something out of one's system.
Get it out of your system. I love that feeling.
Oh, it is such a relief.
It's like purging those, toxic thoughts or emotions
Exactly.
that have been building up.
Just clogging up your mental space.
Yeah. But is it always a good idea to, Get things out of our system?
Well, it depends. Our source talks about, the benefits of expressing yourself authentically, but also, it acknowledges that sometimes, it can lead to hurt feelings.
Right.
Or unintended consequences. It's like handling, a really delicate piece of china.
You have to be careful.
You do. You don't want to drop it.
Okay, so it's all about finding that balance.
It is.
All right. Speaking of delicate situations, let's talk about a phrase that captures that feeling of, unease, instability.
Okay.
Unrest.
Unrest. Yeah.
We often use that to describe, social or political turmoil.
Right. When tensions are high, people are on edge. The source actually mentions unrest in the context of, a protest.
Okay.
That escalated into violence.
Wow.
It's a reminder that, when frustrations reach a boiling point, things can spiral out of control pretty quickly.
It's like watching a pot of water.
Yeah.
Slowly heat up.
Yeah.
And then suddenly boil over. So what can we do to, address those root causes of unrest? Prevent those situations from escalating? Is it dialogue?
It's a really good question. It's a big question.
It is.
And to be honest, it's one that we could probably spend hours unpacking.
Yeah, for sure.
But for now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a phrase that's all about financial abundance. To rake it in.
Oh, rake it in. Okay.
Yeah. Evoke those images of,
Money, money, money.
scooping up piles of cash.
Yeah. A true sign of success.
It is. But is raking it in just about money?
Good question. Or is there more to it?
I think there might be. And I think it's something that we should definitely explore further as we continue our deep dive into advanced everyday English.
Okay, let's do it.
But first, I want to talk about another aspect of language learning.
Okay.
And that is the importance of going beyond just, skimming the surface.
Skimming the surface, right? Like reading the Wikipedia entry instead of the whole book.
Exactly. The source really does emphasize the importance of engaging with information on a deeper level. Delving into those details, uncovering the hidden layers of meaning. It's like the difference between looking at a painting from afar and studying it up close.
You get so much more out of it.
You do. It's about depth of understanding.
That's where the real insights lie.
Oh, why?
Okay, speaking of insights, let's talk about a word that captures that feeling of utter astonishment.
All right.
Gobsmacked.
Gobsmacked.
It's like being struck by lightning.
It is.
You're just speechless.
Yeah. You're in shock.
The source uses gobsmacked to describe someone's reaction to, an unexpected turn of events.
Right.
Pure surprise and disbelief.
Exactly. Like, winning the lottery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're happy.
You are.
But you're also in shock.
You are. It's a lot to process. But, let's not forget about those things that were once all the rage.
Right.
But have now kind of faded into obscurity.
Okay.
The source uses the term passé.
Passé. Yeah.
To describe something that's just, outdated.
No longer fashionable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, that old song.
Yeah.
That you used to love.
Right.
But now it just makes you cringe a little.
Makes you cringe. Passé evokes that sense of nostalgia.
It does.
But also, the recognition that times change.
Right.
Tastes change.
What was once cool is now,
Now it's just embarrassing.
Yeah. Like looking at old photos of yourself.
Exactly. What was I thinking?
Okay, speaking of cringeworthy, let's talk about a word that really captures that feeling of, visceral disgust.
Oh, okay.
Squeamish.
Squeamish, yeah.
It's like, you see something gross.
Right.
You just want to look away.
You want to run away.
The source uses squeamish to describe, someone's reaction to the sight of blood.
Yeah.
Or gore. It's like that,
It's that physical reaction.
Yeah, it's like your stomach is doing flips.
It is.
And you just want to escape. So is squeamishness just a physical reaction? Well, that's a really interesting question. And I think it's one that we could discuss at length.
For sure.
But for now, I want to shift our focus to something a little bit different.
Okay.
The importance of not dwelling on negative experiences.
Ooh. Not dwelling on the negative.
Yeah. Because we all do it, don't we?
We do.
We get stuck in those loops.
Right.
Replaying past mistakes.
Yeah.
Worrying about, what might happen.
The what ifs.
The what ifs. And our source really emphasizes the importance of focusing on the present.
Right.
Letting go of the past.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It is. But dwelling on negativity, it just drains our energy.
It does.
And it prevents us from embracing those new opportunities.
It's like carrying around a backpack full of rocks.
It is. It weighs you down.
Okay. So we need to lighten our mental load.
We do.
Focus on what we can control.
Absolutely. But sometimes, even when we're trying to be, positive, we need a little extra boost.
Yeah, we do.
Our source suggests that we might need to psych ourselves up.
Oh, psych ourselves up. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a pep talk.
Exactly. For a challenging task or, a difficult situation,
Right.
it could involve visualization,
Right.
positive affirmations,
Okay.
or even just, taking a few deep breaths.
Right. And reminding ourselves that we can do it.
Exactly. It's about finding that inner strength.
Okay. So we've psyched ourselves up,
We have,
but then we encounter, resistance or opposition.
right?
So when do we stand our ground
Yeah.
and when do we back down?
That is a tough one. And our source talks about the strategic importance of, knowing when to fight
Okay.
and knowing when to retreat.
Makes sense.
Because sometimes backing down, it's not a sign of weakness.
Right.
It's a strategic move
Yeah.
to preserve your energy for, more important battles.
It's like choosing your battles wisely.
It is. It's a valuable skill.
Okay. Well, speaking of things that can, drive us a little crazy, let's talk about a phrase that captures that feeling of utter exasperation.
Right?
To do one's head in.
Oh, to do one's head in.
That moment when you're ready to scream into a pillow.
You are.
What is going on?
The source uses it to describe, that feeling of just being utterly overwhelmed,
Yeah,
driven to distraction.
like your brain is on overload.
It is. It needs a break.
Yeah. It's like trying to, assemble that piece of furniture
Right.
where the instructions make absolutely no sense.
Exactly. And you just want to give up.
You just want to chuck the whole thing out the window.
Yeah.
So how do we manage those moments when, our heads are about to explode?
Well, that's a great question.
It is.
And it's one that we'll definitely unpack further as we continue to explore advanced everyday English.
Okay.
But for now, I want to focus on a word that captures that feeling of, something being ongoing
Okay.
and seemingly inescapable.
Right.
Perpetual.
Perpetual.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, that dripping faucet
Yeah.
that you can never, quote, seem to fix.
Exactly. A constant source of annoyance.
Yeah. It's like a little reminder that, some problems just don't go away.
They don't. But is perpetual always negative?
Ooh, good question. Could it be positive?
I think it can be. It can also be used to describe things that are enduring,
Okay.
reliable, like, the perpetual cycle of the seasons.
Right.
Or, the perpetual bond of friendship.
So it's all about perspective.
It is.
Sometimes what seems like a curse is actually, a blessing.
It can be.
Okay. Well, speaking of things that can be both good, and speaking of things that can be both good and bad, let's talk about a word that captures that feeling of, disappointment or even pity. Pathetic.
Pathetic.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. It's like, I don't know, like watching someone trip and fall and you feel bad for them.
Right.
But you also can't help but chuckle a little bit. Yeah, it's like, the source uses it to describe a performance that's just so lacking in effort or skill that it's almost painful to watch.
Right.
It's that, like someone tells a joke and it just falls flat.
Yeah.
And you just cringe hoping they'll recover.
Yeah. But is it ever okay to call someone or something pathetic? Isn't that a little harsh?
It really depends. Sometimes, it's used in a more lighthearted way. Like
Yeah.
if you're teasing a friend about their terrible cooking.
Sure.
But when it's directed at someone's efforts or character, then yeah, it can be pretty cutting.
Okay. So we have to be careful.
We do. Words can have a big impact.
Speaking of impact,
Yeah.
let's talk about a phrase that's all about challenging someone's authority.
Oh, yeah.
To call their bluff.
Call their bluff. That's a bold move.
It is.
Our source uses it in a situation where one person suspects that the other person is exaggerating or lying about their position.
Right.
It's basically saying, I don't believe you. Prove it.
Right.
It's a risky move.
It is.
Because if you're wrong, you could lose a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're right, you gain the upper hand.
So it's a gamble.
It is.
Okay, so high stakes. Let's move on to a word that has a much more positive connotation.
Okay.
Adept.
Adept, yeah.
That suggests, a high level of skill.
Right, like expertise.
It's like, I don't know, that friend who can solve a Rubik's Cube in seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that colleague who can just whip up a brilliant presentation
Right.
and make it look so easy.
You do.
Our source actually highlights someone who's adept at, reaping the rewards of their actions.
So it's not just skill.
Right.
It's also, shrewdness.
Right.
Strategic thinking.
Like they know how to, make things happen.
Yeah.
But even the most adept individuals can get caught up in a frenzy every now and then.
Oh, a frenzy. Yes.
Right, that feeling of, I don't know, uncontrolled energy.
Right, like a whirlwind.
Yeah, whirlwind of emotions.
Yeah, factions.
Like being swept away by a current.
It is a bit like that, isn't it? You lose control.
You're just along for the ride.
You are.
But frenzies,
Yeah.
they don't last forever. Eventually things start to settle down.
They do.
And we enter this period of, well, dwindling.
Dwindling. Yeah, it suggests, a gradual decrease.
Like a fading light.
Exactly.
Or, I don't know, a melting ice cube.
Yeah, that feeling of something slowly slipping away.
Right. Like the end of summer.
It is a bit like that.
But even in the midst of decline, we can experience, those sudden upsurges
Oh, yeah, an upsurge, yeah.
of energy or activity.
It's that sudden increase.
It's like a wave crashing on the shore.
It is.
Or, I don't know, a geyser erupting.
That feeling of, momentum building.
It's like your favorite band announcing a reunion tour.
Exactly. Suddenly you're full of excitement.
Yeah, yeah. But change doesn't always happen overnight. Sometimes it's a more gradual process, phasing in new ideas or practices.
Phasing in, yeah. It suggests a more deliberate approach.
Right, well planned.
It's about creating a smooth transition.
Right. Minimize the disruption.
Exactly.
It's like easing into a cold swimming pool.
It is a bit like that, isn't it?
Dip your toes in first.
Yeah.
But sometimes we also need to phase out those things that aren't serving us anymore.
Phase out. Yeah, that suggests a gradual removal.
Right.
Like, slowly reducing our dependence on fossil fuels.
Okay.
Or discontinuing a product.
It's like decluttering our lives.
It is. Getting rid of the old to make way for the new.
But change, whether it's phased in or out, can sometimes leave us feeling a bit, well, jaded.
Jaded, yeah. It's that sense of, weariness or disillusionment.
Right, like you've just had enough.
You have. The sparkle's gone.
Yeah. It's like eating too much candy.
Yeah, exactly.
It was fun at first.
It was.
But now you just feel sick. So how do we combat that jaded feeling? Do we need, like, a complete life overhaul?
That's a really good question. I mean, that's probably a topic for a whole other deep dive.
Yeah.
It is.
But for now, I want to focus on a word that I think is often used in a very positive light.
Okay.
Pledge.
Pledge.
It suggests a very solemn promise.
Right.
Like the oath a doctor takes. Or the commitment a couple makes on their wedding day.
A vow.
Yeah. It implies that deep sense of responsibility.
Okay.
The source mentions a politician making a pledge to support up-and-coming politicians.
Right.
And it really does highlight the importance of mentorship
Right.
and guidance, especially for those future leaders.
Yeah, it's about paying it forward. And, I think as we wrap up our deep dive into advanced everyday English, that's a perfect note to end on.
It is.
It's not just about, sounding smarter or more sophisticated.
Yeah.
It's about using language to connect, to inspire, to make a real difference.
Absolutely. And remember, this journey of language learning, it never really ends.
It doesn't.
There's always more to discover, always more to learn.
I like that.
So keep exploring, keep learning, keep having fun with it. This has been another fascinating deep dive into advanced everyday English. See you next time for more linguistic adventures.